Hey,
Hello,
everybody.
hello.
Sorry we're late, guys. Sorry we're late. It's always all Chronicle's fault. That's what I'm going to say.
Hey, yeah, it's definitely my fault.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. Chronicle, thank you for being here. And how are you, man?
I'm good, man. My first time seeing that intro that we just played, that was fantastic. How are you?
That was awesome, man. And obviously we're going to explain that in just a second.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I'm good. I'm good. Sorry we're a few minutes late. Or a day late and then a few minutes late. Sorry, but
It's fine.
of course, first things first, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers in the ghost community. So, of course, that has to be said. At least, it is here in the United States where I live. I don't know if that's like a thing everywhere. I don't know. But for anybody here in the US, happy Mother's Day or wherever it's celebrated. And yeah,
Happy
so that
birthday,
intro,
mums.
Let's see, that intro is well, first of all, it was honestly badass. I loved it.
That was fantastic.
So it's something that actually you guys here in the chat can participate in, Chronicle and I can participate in. Anybody can, and we're gonna get into it right now. So it's apparently something that people in the Discord for Ghost, like I think the main Discord, but they kind of made an offshoot now, and here is the name of it and the info. And of course, I'm going to link everything in the description below.
Of course.
So it's basically, they're calling it the Ghost Community Sings Project. And so here's their little, statement here. So it's a project to make covers of ghost songs. The first one they're doing, of course, is Peacefield. None of these covers are monetized. Everything we do is pro bono. All resources we use are free. We are a big number of people who want to give something back to Tobias Forge to show him our gratitude, and maybe he'll see this one day. The project gives you the possibility to participate with either audio or video, or I'm assuming even both, or, singing, playing, anything right now of Peacefield. You're 100% certain that you'll end up in the cover, and if you share a video too, you'll be part of the music video, as you saw there as well. So maybe Tobias, can see it one day and he will hear or see you. So each and every one of you is welcome to participate with recordings of vocals, guitar, bass, drums, cowbell, Chronicle's favorite, synth, or honestly even any other instrument they say. Yes, even instruments that are not part of the original song. So you can also participate in the production of the song / video, or in the PR, advertising, sharing it, just doing what you can, which is what, we're kind of doing here. So share this to each of your own friends as well. And all the details and recording tutorials are in the Discord server. And I'll include links for that down in the description as soon as we're done with this, with the stream. But it's called, the Discord server is called the Ghost Community Sings Project. And I think that was pretty badass, man.
That was fantastic.
That was a demo that was sent to me, and that's what they're cooking so far. But of course, with more entries and all of that, it'll be even better. The cutoff is May 18th, so we still have a little bit of time.
We have a week.
And yeah, so we have almost till like next SKELETALK, I believe, to submit, anything that you potentially can do if you would like to. And I will, like I said, I'll link that in the description as soon as we're done with the live stream. So I kind of wanted to shout them out because this is an awesome, project that the community is trying to do.
It is, and the fact that so many people are coming together to play instruments, sing, like that harmony was fantastic. And the people playing the instruments, it's absolutely wonderful. I highly advise that even if you have a smidgen of interest, go check it out, go be a part of it, because this is just a fantastic thing to be a part of. And we've brought up the communal aspect of Ghost a lot and why we do SKELETALK and all this, and I feel like this is a great thing for a community to all do together. It's fantastic.
Exactly. It's like the highlight where we can like, see, there you go. Like that's the kind of stuff we want to see in the community and highlight when we can. So huge shout out to the Ghost Community Sings project, and it's just the one of hopefully many to come that you guys can always participate in. So that is amazing. So thank you for them to also reaching out and seeing if we would like to be involved in some way. And so thank you if they're watching. But obviously now with this one, we're starting our first like Ghost Community book club here, man. So I'm excited, and hopefully you guys are as well. Let us know if you've purchased the Brothers Fore or if you're going to. We had told you guys, because we didn't want to overpromise anything, that we were just gonna like kind of read the chapters during the week and then come here and kind of just do like a deep dive and discussion on them without reading them
in our own time.
Exactly, but we actually did reach out to Johnny Bush, and he gave us permission to read them word for word for you guys on the stream. So shout out to Johnny Bush. That was awesome, and we're just glad we have his permission to do so. We didn't want to, just do that on our make our own decision to do that without obviously consulting with him first. So huge shout out to him for that. So that makes it even better. So still grab your own copies and kind of like follow along with us, and we'll really, we'll be the presenters in class, and you guys will follow along with your own books. And but yeah, man, I'm excited to begin this journey into this adjacent Ghost universe.
Me too, and I still can't believe we've got like full actual permission from Johnny Bush himself to read it all for you. But as you did say, I highly recommend picking up your own book, whether it's digital, physical, one of the special editions that he offers. I highly recommend it. I have the King's Coffer version, and it's fantastic. And it would be great to support this incredible artist.
And of course, huge shout out right away for supporting us.
Wonderful.
The Shape in the Shadows, as always. Thank you so much. It says, this is so awesome. Great to see all Ghost fans come together.
It is.
That demo was really cool. Man, you see all these different Ghost fans, whether you're hearing them or seeing them visually there in the demo. It was really cool. So yeah, guys, come on, please join that project if you can, and share it. Once we get the details down below, share it to other Ghost fans as well. So we'll spread the word on that. And then we have Abe Froman. No message, but just a little bit of support. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Let's see, but yeah,
the
man.
Ghost Community Project YouTube channel has commented. Thank you so much for promoting our project. It helps us so much. Absolutely no problem. It's a great thing that you're all doing and planning. And if I wasn't so incredibly hectically busy, I would absolutely be a part of it, because I'm pretty sure everyone knows that I sing far too much on these SKELETALKs.
Yeah, if any of us here, could have been a part of that, it would have been you, man. But maybe in a future one. But we'll see.
Oh yeah,
we'll see. Definitely.
If you ever cover an Umbra,
that's oh god, please don't. But yeah, thank you so much for reaching out to us, and I'm going to make a community post on the channel as well, so that it gets to as many eyeballs as possible. So I'll make some slides to be able to share it on there as well. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
But But yeah, man, let me start
Right
getting this.
into the meat.
Yeah, because we got some reading to do.
Yeah, we're in for
I
a
was
long one.
I was skimming through, and I'm like, oh boy, did we overpromise on
I
4
don't think
chapters?
so.
We will see. We will see. Challenge accepted. So let me
I
start loading it
not
in.
to spoil it for the chat. I have been personally reading this in my own time. Very good. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it very much. Is this your first? Are you like going in blind?
Yeah, I'm definitely going in blind.
Ooh.
I really don't have the time, especially once we knew we got I got the response from Johnny Bush that we could read it live. I was like, thank God, because the week is already kind of hectic itself, and I honestly
Yeah.
would like. I knew out of the two of us, you were probably going to read ahead. You said even after finding out that he gave us the okay,
Oh yeah.
and obviously, if possible, like you said, you weren't able to do all of it, but as much as possible. And then for me, for sure, I wanted to just kind of experience it just live with all you guys, and that way our reaction was kind of raw for the most part, right? So that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
All right, let me get this loaded in. So we skipped the prologue. We actually obviously did the prologue last time. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
quick little
In
recap.
your little test.
Yeah, a little taste. Let's see here. Let me share the screen. Boom, boom, boom.
Bum bum bum.
Hold on. Actually, it will have to be bald for a second, guys. So just
No,
bear with us.
my hair.
I'll have to. Oh no.
Ah!
Okay, I'll try to make it quick. Quick. Okay,
Where's my hair?
we
Where's my
will
hair?
have
Okay,
this
it's
in.
okay. Oh, it's
But
still bald.
then, okay, okay.
Okay,
Now we're good.
okay, we're okay.
We're good. All right.
Also, look at the new UI. History made one specifically for Johnny Bush's book. I think it's really good.
Yeah, so we have the shouting out the author, Johnny Bush, and now we went from Ghost to the Brothers Fore, because technically, guys, it's not Ghost. All right, it's Ghost adjacent. And then, book links will be in the description below. So obviously to pick up your copy either digitally, physically, whether hardcover or paperback. So all that stuff is like that. But yeah, we got a new little UI. So, thankful for the day that we get to put a new little overlay up here for you guys. But yeah, man, let's get into this. Quick little recap of the prologue was we were in some kind of cabin, secluded. It's snowing outside. We don't know who the so and so protagonist is of this prologue. Ghoul said he had, or Chronicle said he had some idea, but we won't
Ghoul.
get into that. Ghoul, I was like, oh my god. I'm over here trying to say the last names of people. And Wretched Ghoul,
Yeah.
I called her either Wretched or Ghoul. I'm just like, oh my god. You guys get your names. And then he gets this parchment, right? That kind of seems like it's bringing doom and gloom. And then at the very end, knock knock, it seems the horsemen had come. So very ominous.
The debt was due.
Yeah, debt was due. So we don't know if this was like some kind of flash forward, if this was set in the past of wherever we're going to start the event. So I'm excited to see where we go with all of this. So let's continue with the proper chapter 1. And the way we're doing it right is you read all the voices and sound effects, and I'll do the narration.
Yes.
All right. So chapter 1, it's a boy.
It's a boy, my lord. A boy! The fate of Saiju male heir, my lord. A successor to the throne.
The midwife beamed through the hair stuck to her sweat-soaked face, whilst blood and amniotic fluid dripped from her arms, beaming in delight at the royal blessing she now held aloft for the king to see. An eerie silence fell upon the royal chamber, lit only by candles, the light of which found the edges of a man leaning against the closed shutters of a window.
A boy, my lord?
She chortled nervously.
A successor?
Snarled the king, clenching his fist as it supported his weight at the window. The flickering candles glinted off the edges of his many golden rings as he fumbled his fingers.
Why so early?
he questioned.
You said another month. We did, my lord, and by all our predictions, he should still be cradled in the womb, but sometimes they just want to get out.
She explained, fumbling over her words to appease the king.
See,
The midwife said, cradling the babe in her arms in a black silk wrapped, trimmed by a border of red satin.
means he's going to be a fighter, my lord. A strong king, one day.
The woman said, smiling down at the child, who resembled a skinned rabbit from his early arrival. Oh, God. A pained sigh. Oh, there you are. There's Oh, Lord. A pained sigh emanated from the shadows, alongside the cracking of knuckles.
Let me see him.
The king growled. The midwife stood with her arms stretched out, presenting the first child of the Eternus bloodline, whilst the soft and angelic glow from a low, burning fireplace ignited her silhouette. She resisted the need to tremble and instead stood smiling, the blood on her face complementing the rouge of her lips. I'll just say it's rude.
Yes.
The slow and lumbering footsteps of the king followed his presence as he emerged from the shadows. The king's jet black hair hung below his jaw, his charcoal fur coat stretched down to his feet, and his shining golden crucifix, the family symbol, hung firmly to chest and seemed to attract the attention of every candle in the room.
Lord Nemo.
The midwife trembled, presenting his firstborn son in an awkwardly curtsy before her king. Lord Nemo looked upon the child with a contemptuous snarl, furling his lip.
It looks like a rat.
Oh my God. He scoffed, prodding the child with a leather-gloved finger, turning its head side to side to inspect his pointed features. Nemo's eyes found the midwife's. He smiled rather lecherously, then returned his gaze to the thing before him. Wow, man. What an intro to this chapter. And poor so it's not, I know it's not Primo, it's is it Pereggio?
Pereggio. Pereggio, and Nil is Nemo. Lord Nemo.
God. Poor Pereggio.
And the mother,
sighed Nemo, turning his head to the four-poster bed draped in fine cloth, now soiled with crimson. The midwife composed herself for a moment and avoided the king's glare. She shook her head.
My lord, I'm sorry. She... Yes, it's a shame. Tell me.
Oh my God. The king interjected.
You look like you could do with a glass of wine after all of this.
He started, before gesturing at the bed and the baby with a waving hand.
Mess,
he said sympathetically, lifting her chin with the finger.
The child is safe now, this little...
Nemo persuaded, looking at his frail and mottled premature child in her arms. This little...
Oh, that's right. Runt.
He smiled.
Runt?
The midwife questioned, reluctantly, while ignoring the hot flushes brought on by the king's soft and manipulative voice.
Is that his name? It fits it well.
Nemo smiled, reaching his lips toward the midwife who still held his child.
I suppose I could... Is this the midwife or the... I suppose I could think of a real name for it when I have the time. Now, about that drink.
All right, and then it looks like we go 40 years later.
What do they mean?
God, you're ridiculous. As Pereggio, with a soft and gentle voice, sitting hunched with vulture-like posture over a table covered in patterned cloth in a room filled with the lapping waves of fragrant incense that rolled over his bald and wrinkled head.
Oh, I'd like to do him like that.
Wow. The fortune teller sat before him with her head covered in a long and concealing hood, her painted fingers outstretched over several recently upturned tarot cards on the table between them. Her elegant hands and fingers began to dance above the cards, as if plucking at ethereal harp strings, thrumming at the threads of fate.
The brothers,
The fortune teller tapped the first card.
a symbol of family, of unity, a bond bound in blood.
Pereggio leant in, picking at his hands nervously. A viciously unrelenting tic brought on over the course of his sad and sheltered life, from the constant disregard and abuse at the hands of his father, Lord Nemo, who still to this day would deny the existence of his disfigured son, who kept himself hidden away in the darkened libraries of the kingdom's towers.
The brothers.
He whispered to himself, leaning in closer to the cards to inspect their visual depictions with eyes that had never worked entirely perfectly. Wow. The fortune teller remained still as her hands danced to the next card.
The witch.
She explained, tapping a card with the illustration of a hooded and robed figure, split through the middle with a sword. In one hand a knife, in the other a heart, as if weighing them.
This card is
She began, rubbing a finger on the card in contemplation.
open to Historia turn the page. Interpretation. A witch willing to sacrifice for ultimate power? Or perhaps the duality of power and love?
She pondered.
I suppose, Your Grace, it is whatever you need it to be.
She sat motionless as a flutter of birds scattered past the open window behind her, momentarily causing the light of the tower's room to flicker in shadow.
Don't call me that.
Sighed Pereggio, dropping his shoulders in sadness.
There is nothing graceful about me.
Oh, poor Chronicle. He said, saddened, momentarily closing his eyes and placing his chapped and disfigured hands on the table. His eyes opened to find the fortune teller had placed her hands upon his, gently and respectfully, with no disgust or distaste for his scarred flesh. She said no words, simply the comforting weight of her hands upon him said all that was needed. He didn't smile, but he nodded his head in humble thanks. The fortune teller gently squeezed Pereggio's hands, then removed them back to her cards.
The pact.
She continued.
A dark deal has been made, or is ready to be. A ritual, or a sacrifice to be enacted.
She explained.
There you have it. Your 3 cards of fortune have been read. Do you make any sense of the message they bring?
The fortune teller asked, taking from her robe a small tin to collect her cards. Pereggio investigated the nothingness of his mind for a moment while he pondered her question.
I'm not sure.
He said, scratching his wrinkled forehead with a gnarled and scarred finger.
Perhaps.
The first heir to the Eternus bloodline began, when suddenly his thinkings were stopped abruptly, as a card strangely leapt from the fortune teller's deck of cards and landed face down on the table between them. Both Pereggio's and the fortune teller's gazes found each other.
What does it mean?
Asked Pereggio, rubbing his long and crooked nose. Oh my God. The fortune teller placed her hands on either side of the card and hesitated for a moment.
When a card jumps from the deck, it must be read, for it wants to be.
She explained.
This one wanted to make a grand entrance, it seems.
She chuckled from within the recesses of her hood. Pereggio watched as her delicate and painted fingers slowly turned the card over. He looked at the card, then at his companion.
What is it?
The crooked prince asked.
The rat.
Ooh, said the fortune teller, unmoving.
A symbol of riches and of treachery. Strange.
She hummed. The silence of the room closed in until it was broken by a series of repetitive and uniform knocks upon the door. The fortune teller's head turned to the disruption, then back to her guest.
Expecting company?
She asked. Pereggio stood slowly and painfully, as a withered old man would, and pushed his chair respectfully under the table. Oh, hold on, let's pause here for a second. Wow,
This is
this
so
is really
good.
good, man. What in the world? I'm like captivated, and I'm
I'm
like
so
almost
into it.
don't want to like. I almost forget to keep reading. I'm like,
Yeah, right.
this is so good. What the hell?
I'm in love.
Wow. I mean, we already knew it from like the bio he gave that original, medieval version of the different papas that now became the look of the characters. That he
Yeah.
kind of went with the whole thing of, oh, the way he looked, the reason he looks like that, he looks older and all. He went with like, oh, he
He's
was born
disfigured.
early, he's disfigured, and I'm like, it makes so much sense. It
It's
fits.
very Hunchback. Very
Yeah,
Hunchback of Notre Dame. Very Quasimodo.
very tragic already.
Yeah, I feel so sad for my boy Pereggio.
Oh man, poor guy. Like probably the one we know of the least. Now I'm like, man, what the
This is
heck?
sad.
Got dealt, no pun intended, such a bad hand.
Yeah.
People in the
This
chat,
is
what do you
great.
guys think so far? But yeah, this is. Let me jump back into the studio for a second. This is great so far, man. Let's see.
Trying to do a primo voice as hell, by the way, because we have almost nothing of that man. Oh, Cardinal.
Imagining the mistreatment. Oh yeah, you do it. You do it.
Imagining the mistreatment and eventual melancholy of Uncle Primo makes Frater sad. Fictional or not, he was always very kind to Frater.
I jump into that.
Oh my god. Yeah, I felt myself with like little references being like that meme of like Leo DiCaprio from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like pointing
Yeah.
at the screen like
There's
rat
more to come.
said ritual. Oh.
On this night of ritual.
All right. let's go back into it, man. This is really good. All right.
Under the table.
It will be the Nameless,
He nodded.
or as I like to call them, the Knights.
Mocked Pereggio, chuckling to himself.
Father's servants.
I sense no life. What I sense no life beyond that door.
The clairvoyant mused, extending a hand towards the door, her fingers dancing.
They have been with the family for almost forever.
Pondered Pereggio, watching the door.
They never tire and never cease. A life of flavorless existence, of endless servitude.
He sighed, running his scarred hands over his eyes.
It is time that I left. Thank you.
The crooked prince said respectfully, with a gentle bow before taking his leave.
My pleasure, Lord Aternus.
The fortune teller whispered to herself, picking up the cards left on her table. The disfigured, middle-aged heir sighed through a smile that quickly turned into a quivering grimace.
I am simply runt.
He trembled.
Never anything more.
Damn. The clandestine prince took his leave. The fortune teller gave a sympathetic nod as the hunched man left the room before continuing her return of the tarot cards.
Oh.
She muttered, looking down. A card had been taken. She smiled and nodded to herself, packing away the remaining cards.
As it was meant to be.
Ooh. Okay.
Hmm.
I like the like how we were seeing already. The nameless ghouls are these
The Nameless Knights.
the nameless knights already.
Love that.
Who are maybe undead or something? I guess we'll find out.
Something endless to them.
Huh.
That I'm very fascinated by.
All right, and now we go 1 month later. The weary, short-sighted vision of Pereggio's eyes tried best to focus on the formidable shape that stood before him inside his bedchamber, tucked away in the highest, most tower of the royal keep, higher than the scholars wished to climb and far enough away from the man who had somehow found him. A man who, after decades of denying his son's existence, had sought out his firstborn to impart some very royal news.
Me?
Questioned Pereggio, trying to focus his eyes.
You?
Cheered Lord Nemo, who came to his son and gripped his shoulders, pulling him to his feet. The feeling of Pereggio's skeletal frame would bring any other father to sadness. Knowing his child was malnourished and weak, to Nemo, however, it brought only disgust.
But, Lord Nemo,
Started Pereggio, who after all these years still could not maintain eye contact with his father.
why me? Why not one of my siblings? Oh, why not Stendwio or Matrios?
He asked, hesitantly, almost wincing in anticipation of a swinging open palm.
Strong, adored.
Stuttered Pereggio, before his lips could mutter a whisper to himself.
Unlike me.
Lord Nemo's grip tightened on his son's shoulder as they stood within the chamber. Pereggio winced but dared not pull away. The air was thick with tension, the sudden silence broken by the distant cawing of crows. Suddenly Lord Nemo's gaze shifted skyward, his eyes narrowing. Pereggio followed his father's line of sight with eyes that barely worked, and his breath caught in his throat. The skies were changing, a dark shadow creeping across the sun. A solar eclipse was coming, and with it, a sense of foreboding that sent a chill down Pereggio's spine.
My child.
Beamed Nemo, holding his wretched son and kissing each side of his face, even if his lips never contacted his son's with flesh. He produced the puckering smack a kiss would make.
You are my firstborn, the first to enact our birthright. Oh, how proud I am of you, my Pereggio. How I've always been so very proud of you.
Nemo championed with tears in his eyes. As a wounded dog would seek affection from its abusive and violent master, so too did the disfigured Pereggio seek love from his father. Even now, after 4 decades of abuse, neglect, and abandonment, the aged heir desired nothing more than to be held. A dark part of his heart would have burnt his father to death, if only to feel his warmth for a moment. Wow.
Oh,
Dang. Bars.
Damn right.
The prince dreamt momentarily of the flames as they danced around his eyes.
Pereggio?
Came the repugnant sound of his father's
Repugnant.
voice. Repugnant!
Device reference.
Oh my god. Prior band! The king took the air by his frail arm and walked into the open window and basked in the heat of spring's light as soft and bumbling particles of pollen drifted around them.
Look upon them.
Proclaimed Nemo, forcing his son to look out from their keep to the sprawling and bustling markets and streets below.
This can be yours.
My god, anything the light touches, he chorused.
This and more.
The crooked prince winced at the sun. The glare burned at his eyes, forcing him to squint.
More. Much more.
Grinned Nemo.
It is time you took on the crucifix and the mitre for yourself, my child. It is time for me to step down from my throne and in return give the world the power, the majesty of the first of our new bloodline. It is time for our kingdom to receive the grace of Papa Eternus the First.
The black-haired lord, who still didn't seem to age as a normal man should, placed a white silk mitre, emblazoned with a dark and commanding crucifix, upon his son's head.
Father,
Sighed Pereggio, taking the hat from his head.
why now?
Nemo replaced the mitre, then draped around the shoulders of his son a long, black silken set of robes with intricate red trim. He took Pereggio's hand gently and placed within it a black scepter.
You will rule with an iron fist and an iron heart,
Instructed Lord Nemo, rather aggressively squeezing his son's hand around the scepter.
This is your birthright.
Birthright.
Questioned Pereggio, pulling his hand away from his father's vice. Feeling his presence lingering on him physically now, rather than emotionally, brought with it a new sense of fear and sadness.
Look,
Urged Nemo, guiding his son to the tall mirror against the wall.
when my time came to be the ruler of these people, it was as if a message were given to me by some higher power. No letter or promise was given to me, no, but a sign.
He grinned, baring his teeth like a wolf, pulling his hair to the side, revealing his pale white eye.
That is how you know?
Asked Pereggio, squinting to focus on his father's ghastly visage. Nemo nodded and gestured to the mirror as Pereggio stepped closer and leaned into his reflection. Pereggio gasped for his horror as if by magic, his reflection began to change. Like poison flooding a chalice of wine, the color began to bleed from his left iris until it sat like deathly snow in his eye.
What sorcery is this?
Oh man. Panicked Pereggio, pulling at his gaunt cheek to expose his eye further.
What does it mean?
Nemo chuckled and in a strange moment almost sighed with relief as if a great weight had been lifted from his fur-lined shoulders. He swallowed and wiped a bead of sweat from his youthful brow. He took Lord Eternus I to the balcony of the room to look out over his kingdom, with a hand firmly placed in the center of his back. Plumes of white smoke billowed from other windows and chimneys all around the castle, causing the crowds of citizens below to cheer and applaud at the sight of the new ruler above.
What does it mean?
Answered Nemo, whose eyes glared sideways to his aged son.
It means, Pereggio,
He snarled, gripping his son's back tightly with the fist.
that destiny calls to you.
Dang. End of chapter 1.
Yeah. We went through that quick.
This is insane, man. This
I
is
adore this so much.
This is so good. Wow. I'm just loving this, taking it from what we know and applying it to just a completely different setting and style, and the fact that all these elements still seem like they fit. And I already have like many questions, like like the white eye, like in here, how does that work? Like, what does this mean? Like, I'm like Pereggio, like, what does this mean?
I was taking notes as I was reading because I was reading ahead, and I wrote down, what is this Eternus curse, and why was Nemo so glad that he saw his son's eyes change? He wiped a bead of sweat from his brow. What does that mean for Pereggio?
Exactly. It's almost like you have to pass on the freaking smile curse from the freaking Smile movies or something. It's like what
hopefully
is it?
not as dramatic.
Yeah. Wow, that's wow, this is intense. And of course there is a backstory short story. Wow, sorry. For Lord Nemo, but we will get to that after we finish reading the proper book itself. But maybe some of because it does contain spoilers for the rest of this book. But I wonder if it contains an answer to some of your questions right there about the whole this origins of the curse and why he was maybe so relieved to see that it did seem to pass on then to his son. So let's see. All right, so chapter 2.
Got
And
a
this
nice little
is the
Stendwio.
portrait of Stendwio.
Mm-hmm. Secondo.
Secondo, yeah. All right, chapter 2, Beneath the Stars. In the dark and stagnant depths of the castle, where rusting iron chains hung like Spanish moss, and steam escaped through metal grates as if repentant souls were reaching up from the depths of hell themselves, if only to feel the grace of heaven for a moment. A hooded figure sat at his workbench. Stendwio, the second of the Eternus children, and current serving lord of the Eternus kingdom, sat in the glows of green and orange from magic and flame, working tirelessly on his machinations away from the prying eyes of the world above. The sounds of rattling iron and bubbling concoctions relaxed the meticulous king's mind and soothed him as he worked into the darkest hours of the night, the time when his mind would come alive. The white of Stendwio's eyes shone like a star in the blackness of the castle depths as the bald lord slowly and repetitively wiggled his fingers through a burning candle's flame. He sighed and sat back in his chair, looking at the black marks the fire had left on his leather glove. His mind was elsewhere as he gazed upon the inky calfskin. Stendwio, much like his younger sibling, the flamboyant Matrios, took it upon himself to always wear gloves of leather, in respect for their eldest brother, who felt he had to hide the sight of his gnarled hands from those around him, to hide his disfigurement, his sadness, his shame. A sigh, deep and bestial, escaped from the secretive Lord Eternus the Second. He rubbed his fingers to displace the suit, to displace the memories.
5 years since you've been gone, brother.
Wow. Stendwio mumbled to himself as he began to sprawl out documents on his table, using a quill and ink to mark them with symbolic etchings and magical glyphs.
5 years of sorrow.
Pereggio had served for only 2 years as king before his untimely passing. 2 years of adoration and power before succumbing to the evils of man. When taking a sip of wine following the king's ritual, a monthly ceremony in which Lord Eternus I would bless his citizens in a display of power and devotion, he began to choke. Poison.
Oh.
Oh, that's a callback to a description they had earlier, which was like poison in wine. Oh wow. Stendwio and Matrios were given the news of their brother's passing whilst away from the kingdom on a hunting trip arranged by their late brother, and by the time they had returned, he had already been laid to rest within the family crypt, brushed under the carpet, it would seem, like accumulated dust.
5 years.
He sighed. Returning to his work, Stendwio considered his efforts so far. A chart of the stars, laid out like a family tree with various illustrated sigils and written evocations scribed repeatedly over many discarded pieces of parchment. Perhaps this time his spell would work. Ooh, so that's
The magic.
the magic and the chart that you get with the King's Coffer, right? That map or the
Astral map, yes.
Celestial chart.
The astral map, yeah.
Wow.
If I had a picture of it, I'd show you, but it's fascinating. It's so good to look at.
Stendwio put up his hood and left the womb of the castle, emerging after some time from an iron grate on the ground, far from the eyes of any drunken citizens who may still be wandering the streets beneath the moonlight. Regardless of the king's clandestine routine and hidden disguise, he still felt in moments of solitude that eyes were upon him, that his movements were being observed.
Evening?
Nodded a denizen of the kingdom with the tip of a cap, as Stendwio passed by, his long and flowing cloak trailing behind him as he went.
Evening.
Replied the king, without stopping on his journey. In a clearing beyond the bustle of the city streets, by the old well that had long since dried up, left to be consumed by the now parched decay of roses and brambles, Stendwio made sure he was alone. Pleased with what he saw, or rather what he didn't, he continued his work. Unfurling his parchment on the edge of the well, Stendwio upturned his open palms and began uttering incantations in an ancient tongue beneath the stars. Raising his arms to the heavens, his fingers traced arcane patterns across the night sky. As he began his first recitation of ancient incantations, the stars seemed to shimmer and dance, responding to his will. But then something caught his eye. A subtle shift in the celestial bodies, a gradual dimming of the moon's gradient glow. Stendwio's brow furrowed in confusion. This didn't feel like a natural occurrence. A lunar eclipse was not due for several more months by his careful calculations. His concentration and confusion lasted only a moment, as the breaking of a branch in the orchards that lay to his west stole his momentary clarity. As if a strike of lightning, Stendwio snapped his cloak head to the side, tunneling his vision through the trees ahead. Did he see the shape of a person for a second in the pathways between the trees? Or perhaps it was simply a trick of the light, a shadow cast within the orchard. The king snarled, then slowly and cautiously returned to his spell, only allowing his eyes to leave the orchard at the very last second. His hands upturned once more, and his concentration refocused tenfold. Within a few moments, the breeze did blow slightly stronger than it had been, and the stars seemingly made themselves slightly more noticeable, twinkling in a strange pattern.
This is so cool.
What the heck is going on?
Stendwio's a magician.
Let me see. I think I do have. Is this it? Let me see if this is it. Oh, you
That's
see
it,
the
yeah.
map there a little bit. Oh, here it is. Here
Yeah.
it is in full. So that's basically what we're kind
That's
of
the
working.
night sky, kind of. Like all the twinkling lights and things.
That I'm actually thinking of one of the cards that he got. The way it was described, wasn't it like a hooded skeletal figure with a sword running down the middle? So sort of, I guess this rat incursion survival medal kind of has whatever was described on one of those tarot cards, I believe, from the other chapter. So interesting.
Very interesting.
All right, let's continue here. Stendwio smiled and began to laugh maniacally. It would seem his efforts within the realms of the arcane had begun to pay off. However, something still wasn't to his satisfaction. As usual, the spell of the king's design was intended to locate members of his bloodline, to guide him to them like breadcrumbs should they need to be found. The result of this evocation, however, seemed messy. The lights twinkled sporadically and randomly. Too many systems of stars were igniting in the sky to make sense of.
What is happening?
Stendwio murmured to himself, turning his hands in configurations to adjust his power.
You should be able to locate Father and Matrios. Who else have you found out there?
He pondered in a hushed whisper.
Snap!
Stendwio snapped his head to face the orchards once more. The shadow had gone. He was being watched. Dropping his hands to quickly bind his parchment, the stars above dimmed, as if a fire had been reduced to embers. The king gathered his things and returned with a hastened step towards the castle.
Evening.
A voice said, as Stendwio came to the site of his emergence.
Eve,
Stendwio started, realizing it was the same man as before. He turned to confront the citizen, but he was already gone. The grate was removed, and Stendwio retired to the depths once more. Something was off, and it didn't take a man of incantations and magical prowess to realize it.
ooh,
Dang. 1 week later, the autumnal chill of a looming winter began to bite at the bones of the kingdom's commoners. A pale and gray light discolored the land as the impending frost began to settle in. yet the kingdom still attended ritual. A murder of crows cawed, perching in the many heights of the city square, and swooping around Lord Eternus II, whilst he preached his sermon to his loving audience. The occasional black feather fell around his shoulders. Ooh! Black feather from, what is it? Pinnacle to the Pit, right?
Black feather, yeah.
Burning torches
Feathers
stood.
falling down.
Yeah, sweet. Man, I'm loving that we're
Getting hints of
trying
it.
to catch all these little Easter eggs. That's cool.
Checking for his ritual when he's like talking to his people, he's like, "Tonight we are summoned for a divine cause."
Burning torches stood in the ground around the king's stone stone podium with armed guards to either side, brandishing banners on high poles, displaying with pride the crucifix. Stendwio stood in full regalia before his people, his mitre standing tall in the fog, his robes of black silk and green trim flowing like a hesitant specter in the frozen breeze. Oh, I like that. They kept the primary colors of the Segundo.
Yeah.
It was like the green and black. That's
And
nice.
they even kept it with a prima when it was describing what he was wrapped in as a
Yeah.
baby, the red and black.
The red and black, yeah.
Mm.
He stood in quiet contemplation for a moment, his arm out, holding firmly to his staff, topped with an iron rendition of the family emblem, a beacon for his people. Kind of like Segundo actually did have that whole,
The staff.
Yeah. The occasional cough and sniffle would break the silence.
My people,
Their king spoke, which was met with sudden explosive applause.
Yeah.
Wait, you did a sound bite. Stendwio used his hands in little downward motions to hush them.
whispers have been heard through the streets of our city, through the trails of our orchards.
He started, taking a moment to glance at the castle, specifically at the tallest of its spires, where Pereggio had hidden himself away for years.
Through the depths and heights of our castle,
He continued.
whispers of a, how do you say,
He explained.
a witch.
I saw her.
Came the panicked voice of a woman carrying a basket of bread, covered lightly with cloth.
I saw her by the lake. She was standing and facing the moon, playing a.
She tried to explain while miming the use of a wind instrument before being abruptly interrupted.
A flute!
Shouted another onlooker, pushing through the crowd with a shaking fist.
I've seen her too. She was standing by the gates of the city playing that blasted instrument.
He shouted.
Please, please,
Encouraged Stendwio with a set of understanding nods.
try to remain calm in these times of uncertainty.
He consoled. He looked down to the man in an upturned his hand, silencing all but he.
A flute, you say?
The citizen took his hat in his hands as a sign of respect, twisting it nervously, and nodded.
I never saw a face, though, Your Highness. Just her, draped in black, playing that tune.
What type of tune?
Asked Stendwio. My God, the name keeps stumbling me. So I always want to say Stwendio. I just want to I want to get to the W right away. Or like, all right, there's other letters before the W. Asked Stendwio, intrigued. From somewhere in the crowd, a noise did begin, a tune not too out of place to be a children's lullaby. The audience parted, and through it came the small and cautious footsteps of a child, whistling the tune through rosy cheeks, beneath a nose just as red from chill. Stendwio's ears pricked up, his eyebrow raised. Something familiar tickled his memory. The hair on his chest and arms stood on end as the child's whistling drew closer. Sneered Stendwio, forcefully slamming the end of his staff into the podium. The child stopped his advance and lowered his head in humility and respect.
This is the tune you all heard.
The king asked, looking at as many faces as he could for his answer. The crowd became a sea of nodding heads as Stendwio pondered the news. The king opened his mouth to speak.
Where's the pretty one?
Shouted a rather robust and rough-looking farmer's wife.
That's me.
Oh my god, whose singular tooth took center stage of her mouth.
Not helping the British accusations.
Stendwio's frown of intrigue and worry broke and relaxed into a smile. He then removed his mitre and handed it to one of his guards, who placed it carefully inside a glass box lined with green silk cushions.
Matrios is currently away at war, fighting for our fair kingdom, for the likes of you and me. The young prince is still, unfortunately for you, a good few months away from returning to the ripe and inviting bosom of our kingdom. But he'll be happy to know he's got someone as, how do you say,
Stendwio explained, trying to find the word.
Ravishing?
Beamed the old woman, gripping her hands at her chest in excitement and thanks, her tooth poking out from her lip. There was an awkward silence. Stendwio smiled and allowed his shoulders to relax.
ravishing?
He nodded before blowing her a kiss. The brooding woman caught his kiss and promptly stuffed it down the front of her skirt. A pale and mottled hand gently lowered onto Stendwio's shoulder. A nameless knight. Stendwio nodded, then turned back to his crowd.
Thank you all.
He boomed with blackened feathers falling down around him. In military precision, 4 of the Nameless Knights, in a line, turned and began to leave the stage. Stendwio took one final look at his crowd and the ominous crows above him. His eyes followed the momentary fall of a feather to the ground. He snarled at what he saw by his feet.
Rats!
He growled, kicking a verminous rodent from his sight.
We never get rats.
He scoffed. Stendwio joined on the tail of the knights as they left, to be followed by the remaining 4 behind him. All right. Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Tozo's at war, apparently.
so Terzo's at war, or gone, and then when he was doing that whole thing, obviously it was kind of finding another in the bloodline, which was, I'm assuming, Copia or
Ion in this book.
Ion. And I'm assuming this lady that they're talking about that they saw, playing
The
this
witch.
flute is maybe going to be Ion's mother here,
Pythia or Pythia.
Pythia. So I'm piecing together that that's what's going on, and apparently both of them are gonna come with the plague of rats that is seemingly now beginning to. We saw the first signs of right now, so that's what I've pieced together so far. Are you kind of on the same boat?
Yeah, definitely. And also with the facts of like the rats are like slowly creeping in kind of deal to the story. And it's kind of foreboding Copia's arrival, even though Copia is silly. Like, he's a silly guy in the actual lore. Do you reckon he's going to be more of a imposing presence in this book?
I think so. I think I don't think we're getting that same version, obviously, that we've seen from the chapters.
Yeah,
we've seen the piece of art. Obviously, that's like him in like full
surrounded by the rats.
Surrounded by the rats, and also him later in like a full suit of armor. So
I don't know. In my opinion, I don't know if that's this in this book, because I know he did some art just medieval ghost, but I don't know if all of that is in the Brothers Fore or he just made things tangentially to it. I'm subscribed to his Patreon, so I've learned a lot of stuff, including some of the stuff in the making of the Brothers Fore. I'm a big Johnny Bush fan.
All right.
At this point, thanks to this book.
So maybe it's just that version that we saw teased in the. I think let me see if I still have the image here. Let me bring this one up. Yeah, there we go. The first one there on the left, with just kind of him, like you said, surrounded by the rats. And then for anybody who didn't see before, that's Lord Nemo is the second one. And then Pereggio, Stendwio, which is the one we're at right now.
Matrios.
Matrios is off. He's away from the kingdom right now. And I think that's another image of Matrios after that as well.
It is, yeah.
So yeah. Okay. All right. It's getting really interesting. Oh my god! If you see anything that I'm missing, because obviously when I'm over there in the other, I don't see any of these comments, so I don't know anything that is going on. Let's see. Somebody says they're ready for Terzo. I feel like if Terzo was in war,
oh god! Sorry, I just remembered how chapter 3 starts.
All right. Well, now you got
We'll
me
get to it.
intrigued. So let's
I have to read that.
let's get into it. All right.
Oh no!
All right. I know this is what you've been waiting for. So let's get into 2 and get into 3. Let's see here.
We're on later that night.
Later that night, yeah. In his private chambers, so later that night, in his private chambers, which more closely resembled a dungeon of sexual adventure, and
Wow.
from time to time were used for just that.
Stendwio fucks.
So
Canon.
not just Matrios, but assumingly,
Yeah.
we don't know. I don't know yet.
Probably.
Stendwio disrobed and stood wearing only a pair of black silken braids.
Yeah, I guess so.
Gazing into his full-length mirror, oh my god, and sipping from a goblet of wine, which seemed to have found its way to his head a little quicker than normal, perhaps a potent batch. He took a deep glug and placed his drink down beside him on a table, with pots filled with different powders and paint. Over his shoulder, he had slung a wet hot towel, causing streams of condensate to run through the hair of his chest and down his rather well-defined abdominal muscles. Okay.
He's giving me what I want in this book so far.
He regarded his visage and sighed. Stendwio wore the family paint, or his ghost, as he and Pereggio had jokingly regarded it, whenever he needed to be in the public eye. A striking painted mask, a contrast of white and black to resemble a skeletal grimace in honor of his late brother.
I do this for us.
He grumbled. Stendwio looked at his reflection and saw closely a striking resemblance to his late sibling.
I do it for you, brother.
He toasted, raising the goblet once more and finishing the remaining wine. Feeling the effects of it within his skull almost unpleasantly, he shook his head to try and displace it. Pereggio had taken it upon himself to adorn his face with skeletal makeup on the morning of his coronation to appease their father, Lord Nemo, who in his earlier and more promiscuous days had painted his face in a similar fashion at masquerade parties. Ooh, dance macabre. He thought it gave him something extra. Stendwio always thought it was like rolling shit in glitter. Wow.
He hates Nemo too, I get it.
Even after years of neglect and abuse, a lifetime of harrowing solitude and loneliness, Pereggio still only wanted to make his father proud, and he assumed the wearing of the paint would make his father love him just an ounce. He was met with an open palm and a powerful kick to the stomach. Nemo saw it as his disfigured son trying to follow a little too closely in his footsteps, in boots a little too big for such disfigured feet. Wow.
You will never be me, you dog.
Nemo screamed at his son. Stendwio snapped out of his daydream.
I do this for you.
He repeated. He adorned the paint to honor his fallen brother and to stick a middle finger up to their father in the process. Taking the steaming towel, Stendwio dragged it firmly down his face and slowly removed the paint, then took a good look at himself in the mirror.
There is a darkness at the very heart of my love for this family.
Shout out! Darkness at the heart of my love,
I love.
he said to the silence of the room.
It feels tainted, like rotten venison. It is perhaps my own nihilism that haunts me. Or perhaps
Nil, he whispered to himself.
Perhaps it is my heart urging me to be cautious of something.
He sighed.
But what?
Stendwio glared at a set of knives in decorative scabbards on his table, branded with the crucifix, a gift from his father upon reaching adolescence.
Or who?
He mused. Lord Eternus II turned and furrowed his brow, glaring at a rodent that had found its way into his chamber and had taken up residence on a dark wooden beam running along the ceiling. It watched the king intently.
You again?
Stendwio grunted, wiping off the remainder of his ghost and hanging the towel around his shoulders. There was a hesitant silence. It seemed as if the room was holding its breath for a reply. Stendwio exhaled and chuckled.
Did they honestly expect a response? Perhaps it is time to rest.
The king took a candle, gripped by a hand attached to an unnaturally vascular forearm, to get a look at the rodent, but before the two could meet, it had vanished, leaving behind only the patter of its feet, scurrying back through whichever hole it had found its entrance to Stendwio's chamber.
Go back to your family.
He sighed, smiling.
What is the worst one rat can do?
The morning after.
Stendwio.
Came the chime of his father, Nemo, holding his son's head up from his desk, half touched by a spilt jug of wine that lay next to his bald head. Nemo brushed a few. They really emphasize on the bald.
Bring it up. Yeah, just so you know, Stendwio is bald and he has no hair, and he's bald and his hairline sucks.
And he's bald. Nemo brushed a few wayward strands of graying hair from his eyes, the sight of which caused his brow to furrow. Stendwio's eyes opened, slowly, drearily, painfully.
You sound surprised.
Groaned Stendwio, raising himself to slump back in his chair and nursing his head with his hand. Nemo chuckled.
A heavy night, my boy.
Chuckled Lord Nemo, slapping his son on the back with an overly firm palm. Stendwio lurched forward with every painful strike until he could tolerate it no more. He reached back and caught his father by the wrist firmly. Nemo paused, trying to retract his hand from his son's grip, but it was no use.
You're stronger than I thought.
Sneered Nemo, looking at his wrist, then to the spilt wine.
Clearly.
He groaned beneath his lips. Stendwio's vice-like grip intensified. Around a wrist he could easily snap. His eyes found his father's.
You are getting older.
Smiled Stendwio, almost victoriously.
Finally.
He thought to himself, as their father never seemed to age according to his years alive. The bald king released his father's wrist. My God.
I'm gonna palm Stendwio's head like a basketball.
Nemo smiled.
You are needed in the dungeons, my boy.
Explained Nemo, wincing as he rubbed his wrist the way a dog would lick his wounds.
I simply came to fetch you.
Nemo stood back, awaiting a response.
The dungeons?
Questioned Stendwio, finding the edge of the table with the flat of his hand and hoisting himself to his rather unsteady feet.
What business do I have there?
He asked, rubbing his head, and trying to focus on a vision that was succeeding in staying doubled. Nemo smiled that goddamned that goddamn lupine smile,
Yeah.
bearing
Wolf
his
smile.
teeth. Okay. All the wretchedness of a wolf with the loyalty of a stinking ferret.
Do you not operate in the depths of the castle, my child?
Interrogated Nemo. A silence befilled the chamber as Stendwio gathered his battered thoughts.
Who has seen me in the depths, father? Or at least someone who looks like me?
The bald king questioned, keeping his cards close to his chest.
For what reason would a king have to hide in the shadows?
Nemo smiled and leant in close to his son.
There is nowhere in this kingdom a man can hide that eyes will not find him, that ears will not hear him,
Nemo explained.
where hands will not catch him.
Stendwio sneered at his father's riddles.
Why is my presence requested?
Queried Stendwio.
I feel your presence amongst us. You cannot hide in the darkness, my boy. You cannot hide away forever. Destiny finds us one way or another.
Another one. Nemo chuckled, gently patting his son on the shoulder.
Ignore me. Simply citing words of a recent theater production. I must attend the Historia, turn the page. Ritual outside the kingdom. I will only be gone for a few days. You must let me know how you get on down there. We'll have some wine together when I return.
He smiled.
Amongst who?
Stendwio thought to himself. He said nothing but sighed as his strange father left the room to prepare for his trip. If someone had
Strange father.
been...
Looks like Dad's a bit kooky, but it's all right.
Yeah. Oh my god. If someone had been interfering with his work within the dark arts down in his clandestine workspace, if someone had so much as turned a page out of place, there would be hell to pay, and Stendwio would collect that payment with his bare hands if he needed to. The bald king stood to his rather weak feeling legs and sighed, scratching his chin. Picking up the spilled jug of wine, he sensed something out of place, something missing. The fuzziness in his head won the fight for clarity, and he could not place the missing or rearranged items on his table. It wasn't important. There were matters to attend to. The hours of the day began to pass. The mist-covered streets of the kingdom began to freeze beneath the might of a winter darkening into twilight, lit only by burning torches, illuminating the cobbled streets in a soft and amber glow. Murmurs of the kingdom's denizens eventually faded out as the rumors of the supposed witch were laid to bed for another night, giving the citizens ample time to dream up more falsehoods to peddle the next morning around the winter bonfires. The chirp of crickets transformed into the caw of crows, and in the darkest hours of the night, so too did those melodies of the day fade away beneath the shriek of bats, until only the glint in the eyes of those nocturnal fiends and the sea of stars they swam beneath did shine through the black of night's embrace. Beneath the calls of winged messengers, the hastened step of Lord Eternus II's boots sounded out against the rime-riddled cobbles of his fair city as he marched onwards with purpose. It would be too easy to take the steps within the castle down to the depths below to where the bald king made his laboratory. Yes, it would be altogether too easy for prying eyes to watch his every step as he did, too easy to draw more unwanted attention to Stendwio's subterfuge.
Evening.
A voice rang out pleasantly. It was familiar, unthreatening, even in the gloom of night. Stendwio said nothing. He kept his head covered by cloth and held low. Just where did he recognize that voice? It suddenly hit him, like an arrow to the head. It was the same commoner as the other night. Was he waiting for the king in anticipation? Watching him? Stendwio disregarded the notions of suspicion. He was simply being polite, surely. Clearly irregular to the streets at this time of night, he posed no threat, he meant no harm. Onwards the king marched until the familiar commoner was lost in the nighttime fog, and the sight of the manhole cover, Stendwio's secret entrance, lay before him. After giving a quick look over his shoulder and deeming the covering free from wandering eyes, Stendwio opened the cover, sounding a powerful and gritty cacophony. With the swish of his cloak and the recovering of the hole, he was gone. Through the stagnant and wretched black depths did Stendwio traverse, knee-deep in foul water and excrement, lit only by a burning torch left near the entrance. The king traveled on through the spillways, shout out, of the city
Spillways.
until finally he reached his arcane laboratory. Hey, I was right about that. I said the spillways would be in the kind of like in the catacombs of the city where Stendwio would go to. So
It's really cool. You were on the dot with that.
50 pairs of glistening eyes turned to face him as Stendwio emerged from the darkness into the light of his study. 50 pairs of yellow teeth and twitching whiskers before him.
Rats.
He sighed.
You wretched rodents are becoming far too much of a recurring sight for me.
The rats remained stalwart in the face of the bald king. That was until, with the it still gets with the swish of a burning torch, leaving a trail of flickering embers scattering like fireflies through the dark of the chamber, he scared them into a frenzy.
Them rats.
He scoffed, waving his burning beacon through the air, watching as the furry intruders rushed around his feet, squeaking and fumbling at his boots. What was that?
I thought you were like, what's the word? Fumbling.
And fumbling at his boots before the scratch of their claws became a faint, splashing patter whilst they escaped through the spillways of the sewers back to the infested lair from whence they came.
Mm-hmm.
Stendwio scoffed, returning to his clandestine study within the center of a subterranean depths below the castle. A gritty and grinding sound did momentarily make itself known, but from where Stendwio could not accurately detect. He scoffed a second time. The chamber felt oddly cold. True, the academic Stendwio usually had flagons and glass bowls filled with a variety of noxious and exotic potions burning away throughout the night, warming his workspace to a viable temperature, but this time it felt solemn, dead, as if a room full of candles had all at once been extinguished with one forceful breath. It felt like death. It felt like ghosts.
What has happened here?
He whispered to the invisible specters of the room. Using his gloved finger to flip the pages of a grimoire, he frowned. The pages were unkept, away from the designated and bookmarked page to which he had left it in his prior delving. The fires were out, the light was gone, and once more, the fog from the city above found its way below, omnipresent in its traversal of the kingdom, like creeping skeletal fingers on his flesh. Stendwio felt the approaching rime as the sorrowful season above had found him. Winter had come. The death knell chimed in the wind.
That's so cool.
Oh my god.
Death knell, death knell.
Oh my god, I thought that was the end of the chapter. Oh no.
Evening.
A familiar voice came from the darkness of the spillways, accompanied by the splash of stagnant and necrotic water beneath the feet of someone still trying to delay their reveal.
That voice.
Sneered Stendwio, tightening his hand into a leather-bound fist that creaked and cracked beside him. He did not turn to face the uninvited. No, he remained with his back turned. It was of much more use to peruse his table for a defensive implement. He looked, but as many poisons and tools of butchery had been long since removed in his absence.
Lord Eternish the Second.
The stranger boasted with a cocky tongue.
What?
Stendwio grunted to himself. The voice now seemed to appear above him, far off in the rafters of the dungeon.
How are you doing that?
Doing what?
The voice chimed again. this time creeping into Stendwio's ear as if it escaped from his lips, only inches from his head.
The witch.
Stendwio theorized out loud, only to be met with a ghastly chuckle, which seemed to echo from wall to wall in the darkness with the power of an earth-ridden demon. A sudden jolt of something powerful ran beneath Stendwio's skin, immobilizing him. Even if this spell was purely imagination, his vision tunneled and the remaining light began to fade from his sight, leaving only one lonesome spillway tunnel before him. A deep and hungering fire burned around its bend, growing every moment with the cacophonous thrum of diabolical laughter, flashing and distorting his vision with every deep and painful beat of his heart. The voice returned in the darkness.
In darkness, we find our future.
The voice whispered to the core of Stendwio, whose eyes could not flee from the growing and approaching inferno.
Our sins hidden within the flames.
It spoke, conjuring silhouettes in the fire of a powerful ruler before screaming onlookers, a crown being placed on their head.
Yet the weak are dazzled by its light.
What does it mean?
Whispered Stendwio, his breath becoming troublesome to command. With the blast of silhouetted magic, the image of the crowd in the fire was destroyed, burnt to ashes.
In a world where the sun may bring our sacrifices to sight.
The voice said, contorted and changed like a breathy dog, desperate for water. Stendwio's eyes shot open as the fire beyond the spillways exploded with ungodly fury. The sound of a blade pinged above the bald king's head. Screaming in a moment of clarity, the voice spoke as if preaching to a sermon, as if presenting an offering.
Let there be night.
The light in Stendwio's eyes faded from a blade plunged deep into his back, through his chest, and directly into his heart. What the hell? The king dropped to his knees until finally succumbing to the agony. He lay on his stomach. What the? Feeling the heat of his blood and envelop him before the desperate chill of death came to find him. The breath in his lungs abandoned their function, drawing one final ragged inhale as the wound in his chest gurgled. Destiny had found its way within the Brotherhood once more. In the final moments of his consciousness, the king reflected, if only for a moment.
The love I held in my heart holds the darkness all its own.
He spoke to the darkness, seeing himself with his brothers. He felt the cold of the blade through his heart.
It's so cold.
Oh my god, man, I can't. He struggled before his eyes shut for the final time, and his royal blood ran through the cracks of the dungeon to the depths below. The clatter and clang of a discarded knife chimed from the cobbles of the depths before the sound of a grinding sewer grate echoed in the darkness once more. The king is dead. Long live the king. What the hell?
Stendwio is gone.
Wow.
This made me so sad to read, dude.
Only one chapter each. We're going through them like flies.
Yeah, like this is so good. The chapters are so short, but they deliver such great story. Like in this, we learn all about Stendwio and his relationship to his brothers, and I don't know. It's so sad seeing him die and also be called bald like 7 different times throughout this one chapter.
I read so much Bald King.
Bald King.
I'm glad I don't have to keep reading the Bald King.
Mm.
But man, what a way! And then the fact that right now it seems to me, I mean, I could be wrong. I'm taking it as that was what is it, Ion? Or
Ion, yeah.
Ion.
This universe's version of Cardinal Copia, who I guess wouldn't be a cardinal, so he's just Copia.
So he just Copia. But he murdered Stendwio in here. At least that's what we don't know exactly.
That's how I'm reading it. I didn't read much farther past this. I read a little bit into chapter 4, but I'm pretty certain that's Ion.
Oh my god.
Now the chapter I wasn't excited to read.
Oh
Live
god.
for-
Sean
Yeah.
Tauntaun says I'm gonna get the spray bottle ready for chapter 3.
It starts like that. Also, I need you to all to know I don't do a very good Terzo impression. Sorry.
Oh my god.
It's gonna get freaky. Yeah, Dev, it might.
Somebody said I love that Johnny really leans into Ion being the plague bringer. Yeah.
That would make sense for all the rats. Like, there's 50 rats,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden Ion appears.
Wow, and you're right. I mean, we were just we were like, is this one gonna be like kind of, you know, the comedic, or what's he gonna be like? And we're like, no, he's gonna be more
Yeah.
serious. Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah,
more
I love
serious.
that. The plague bringer Ion. Hey, Copia's in chat again.
Oh my god.
Frater would never hurt. Oh, it is time for Terzo's chapter. You hate Terzo, man. Frater would never hurt Secondo. V is a different story. Secondo took Frater to his first strip club. I loved him dearly. Speaking of strip clubs, you know, chapter 3.
Wretched Gully says his story is going to blush.
You might. I'm also going to blush thinking of reading this.
Oh no,
all of you.
Reanimated Terzo says I have high expectations.
Terzo, I know your head was, separated from your body and reattached, but do you want to step in and read your lines? I can't do your voice that well, man.
Let's see what we can do here.
We're all gonna need spray bottles at Shanton. Thank you.
Chapter 3 might be the last one. Because we're already going on almost or we're at 1.5. We'll see how long it takes to get through chapter 3.
We might be able to fit the next two. Like, might.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see here.
We need to lock in.
All
Oh
right,
god, I'm not gonna be locked in. Right, let's go.
Okay. All right. Stretching. Taking a step.
Getting ready. Getting locked in. Quick around for Kane to encourage him. You don't want to encourage this behavior. We need the spray bottle out.
All right. Let's see. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah, let's go. There's
Ooh,
Matrios.
yeah. There he is. There's our boy.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
Chad.
Looking so obviously younger than his brothers.
Oh my god. All right. Chapter 3 on bitter rains. Boys do not cry. They cast and cage their emotions in titanic iron chains and hold firmly with 2 hands. Should wayward feelings try to creep away, to find solitude and respite in the ears or the hearts of others, those chains were to be pulled back with all the vigor of a man can muster. For a man's weakness is found in his tears, not in his death. At least, that's what the boys of the Eternus family had always been told by their ever-charming and stoic father. For the third and youngest brother of the Eternus bloodline, the radiant and promiscuous Matrios, crying was not a turmoil he had ever needed to endure. Oh no, for the young, olive-skinned, jet-black-haired, and hedonistic prince, pleasure and self-fulfillment was all that the heir to the Eternus crown surrounded himself with. Oh god. Adored and lusted for by all, young and old, men and women, Matrios had made quite a sinful, delicious name for himself amongst the kingdoms. If he could, the young Casanova would remain and never leave the safety of his city walls, for he knew the ins and outs of every city street and most of the men and women within them. Unfortunately for Matrios, he had been appointed the poster child of the family, the face of the Eternus name, the Golden Child. Forever the head of the lavish parade with his brothers in tow, catching and clutching the throne roses of his admirers close to his heart, sometimes smelling one deeply, then biting it between his teeth with a fervent and royal wave of his hand. Women would faint to the cobbles with a turned wrist at their foreheads as he passed by and blew a kiss. Matrios had about him a power, a charm, a spell over the denizens of his father's empire, a charm which Nemo utilized frequently. The charming young man would be brought along to discussions of urgent matters, with rulers from around the world to discuss important financial acquisitions. While the midnight haired prince didn't exactly wield the quill and sign on the dotted line, he acted as a social lubricant. Oh, God. Dazzling his father's guests and enemies with rip roaring banter, feats of daring and irresistible flirtation, all showered beneath the bellyfuls of potent and encouraging wine. Vanity and pleasure were Matrios's passions. The upkeep and meticulous preening of his glorious head and hair were more important to the gorgeous prince than the demands of duty and honorable service that ultimately lay ahead of him. He'd rather die before honorable vows were more important than his looks. Even while his image ruled his life, Matrios was a master of seduction and persuasion. He was a handy asset indeed. Young Matrios, a valued son to be sure, a beautiful tool to be used. Came the we're in it, boys.
Yeah, right.
Came the lustful.
He's in something.
We're in the deep end now. We can't get out. Came the lustful and strained cries of passion from the lips of a buxom brunette, whose exposed breasts bounced with every forceful stroke inside her, feeling the weight of her dress resting against the arch of her back. Her hands held onto the sides of the table. She'd been bent over for dear life.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
She screamed, feeling herself ready to climax. Her hair.
I'm blushing, dude. This is horrible to read.
Her hair being pulled by the lover inside her. A pair of lips as succulent as hers came to whisper in her ear.
No, my love.
The lips sighed in a breathy groan. Then he ran his tongue around the outside of her ear while she clenched around his length.
No God, only me.
The lips rectified, with a tone both commanding and sweet.
Only Matrios.
Jesus Christ. With the mention of his name from lips as soft as his, the deliciously rounded baker's daughter had reached her limit, finishing there and then with one almighty gush. Matrios looked down past her devilishly plump cheeks and chuckled.
Well,
He smiled, running his fingers between her legs.
I think I'm going to need some new boots.
The young Eternus prince slapped his flavor of the day firmly on the buttock, sending a resounding smack around the large tent they were in.
Come.
Matrios began to say.
Again?
The woman interrupted, raising her forehead from the table to look upon her suitor, with sweat-drenched hair covering her now rosy flesh. Matrios sucked his fingers clean.
I was going to say, my darling, come and have a goblet of wine with me.
He offered, walking around his satisfied entertainment and picking up two silver goblets which he held by their stems between his fingers. The baker's daughter pushed back her hair, rehomed her breasts within her top, and pulled down her dress. She found Matrios standing by the entrance flap of the large and heavily guarded tent. He had pulled up his riding breeches and stood barefoot, wearing an unbuttoned white silk chemise, or I don't know.
Chemise, I think.
Showing his well-defined pectoral muscles. The beads of sweat on his skin glittered like stars in the dying light of the sun as it began to set, casting an ocean of reds and ambers across the sky, even with the approaching winter. Still staring at the sunset, Matrios handed the woman a goblet filled with wine. He chuckled and took a sip. Matrios found himself often at the back of some great war being fought by his kingdom. Whilst never actually fighting, he would always be seen with his troops and have songs sung about his bravery. The people responded well to a kingdom whose monarchy fought for them, especially when that monarch was the naturally beautiful socialite Matrios. Every time the young prince returned from war, he would be greeted with no less than 1,000 red roses, all thrown from his adoring citizens who wept in joy at his very presence. Women and men alike would throw themselves before him, if only for the opportunity to kiss his feet as he stepped over them. Adored and loved by all, his return to his home was always a celebration of life. Matrios looked on from the smoke of war that had drifted from the battlefield miles away. It was thick and dense and brought with it the strong smell of sulfur and blood. He sipped his wine as the cloud passed through the field before him until something caught his eye. Could he see someone? As the smog traveled across the open landscape, the young prince was adamant he could see someone behind the wall of gray.
Do you hear that?
Matrios asked, looking at his companion.
Hear what, my love? Tune, melody.
He said softly. The woman shook her head and took a deep sip of red wine.
I think the wine's got you.
She chuckled.
It seems familiar,
mused Matrios, looking back to the figure that seemingly watched him from a distance. He moved the flap of the tent and took a step forward to go and investigate, but just as he did, the smoke carried on its journey, vacating the field, and with it, whatever or whomever Matrios may have seen.
Ah!
Panicked Matrios, spilling his wine as something ran across his feet, spooking the young prince from his concentration.
I hate rats.
He shivered, looking around his boots to make sure the blasted pest had left him.
They're only rats, my lord.
The baker's daughter smiled.
What harm could a rat do to the mighty Matrios?
She flirted, pulling herself close to the prince and running a finger down his stomach muscles. Matrios chuckled and grabbed his woman firmly by the waist and pulled her close to him, their lips only seconds from meeting once more like distant lovers.
Prince Matrios,
Came the rough and gravelly voice of Banchelo, the prince's appointed head of protection. One of the many armored guards stood protecting the prince in his tent. Matrios placed a finger on the lips of his lover to pause them for a moment.
Yes.
Sighed Matrios, already feeling the deep and powerful thrum from his crotch once again.
it's them.
Explained Banchelo, hesitantly. Matrios left the tent in frustration, feeling the frost against his bare feet, and turned to greet his security.
And who exactly is...
He began to be met by a line of 8 dark and foreboding figures. He whispered. In the dying light of the day, before the young prince, stood the Nameless, the clandestine and mysterious sect of guardians who tirelessly protected the king. For years, the Nameless had been in endless servitude to the Eternus family. Their father had spoken of them in tales of his past, meaning they had been with the family as far back as their father, and perhaps even before that. Clad in slim-fitting black armor, the Nameless, or the Knights, as Pereggio had called them much to his father's annoyance, the strange band of guardians all looked similar. There were men and women amongst their ranks, but no apparent hierarchy. They operated as one single unit and never left each other's sides. Atop their heads, covering their faces completely, the Nameless wore twisted and malformed masks resembling nightmarish devils cast in tarnished silver. In a certain light, skin could be seen through the wretched eye holes of their facial cover of their facial coverings. Oh, sorry, my little one. Proving in a way that they were indeed human beings, or at least some iteration of one. Within the eye holes, sometimes an eye could be made out in the shadows, but an eye that never blinked or moved. There was life beneath those masks, whatever that life may be. The Nameless Knights could be identified individually. Each bore an etching in their armor. For what reason the brothers never knew. Some had monikers given to them by Pereggio as a child. Lord Eternus the first spent his childhood locked away from human sights in the towers of the kingdom. Without friends to play with or caring adults to confide in, Pereggio found himself playing with the knights. He would throw a ball he had found in a box, hoping that one day he would be the one to catch it. Yet the knights never flinched. Regardless, Pereggio still found just their presence a comfort. On one occasion, after Pereggio had cried into the early hours, picking anxiously at his hands, he fell to a slump on the ground, his crooked back in agony on the wooden floors of an attic hideaway, his eyes open to a creaking sound approaching, to the boots of one, whom he called Hummus?
Hummus. Yeah, hummus.
Hummus, standing before him as the lumbering monster began to kneel. Pereggio winced, imagining his father had ordered them to kill him once and for all. However, the stomp to the head never came. Instead, he opened his eyes once more, and for the first time in his sorrowful life, he smiled. For left in front of him was a ball. Pereggio looked up to find the knights around him, and he felt joy like no other. Nobody knew just where the knights came from, and nobody questioned it either. They were simply there, and they had always been. Oh, they always had been. Covered in scratches and scrapes from battles and assassination attempts, covered in splashes of blood and dust, the Nameless remained forever on duty. Dude, this is a great, just like
I
use.
love how much character we're getting for Pereggio when in reality we got almost nothing for Primo. This is great.
Yeah, and I was even going to point out, like, I love we're still getting more of his story, his backstory, even though he's gone from the present story. We're still kind of piecing more little things together here and there. So maybe we'll get even more Stendwio in the rest of the book as well. So
I hope so.
Cool. The Nameless stood in a line with military stature and spacing. They didn't speak. They seemingly didn't breathe. They simply stood and watched the black-haired prince as if waiting for command. There was an eerie silence. Matrios looked at Banchelo and nodded his head, giving him silent confirmation that he was okay and that the situation was being handled. Banchelo nodded back, then returned to a small camp next to the tent, where some of the prince's guardians sat by a campfire. The men were eating roasted wild boar and sipping on tankards of frothing ale as the day began to fade. With the wave of a hand, Matrios encouraged his companion to head back inside the tent to keep warm.
Why are you here?
Asked Matrios hesitantly.
I forget. Oh, sorry.
The knight simply stared back.
I forget.
Smiled the prince.
You don't speak.
Matrios looked out to the horizon where the miniature silhouette of the kingdom sat like a raven against the sunset. He questioned them again.
Why are you here? Where's my brother? Where's Stendwio?
Silence.
You knights only protect the king. Why do you bother me here?
Oh, this is when he's getting the news. Okay. Asked Matrios as a sense of unease ran across his olive skin.
You only protect the king,
he said once more, feeling tears begin to form, which he shook away at the thought of his father's spite.
You only protect the king,
panicked Matrios in the voice of a saddened child. His mahogany eyes looked at the ever-tightening fist in front of him before they dropped by his sides along with his shoulders. He looked to the knights with red eyes, but bore no tears.
You only protect the king. Where is my brother?
He whimpered. Silence.
Where is my brother?
Screamed Matrios. The knights parted as Matrios ran through them and leapt upon a charcoal mare that had been tethered to a hitching post at the edge of camp.
Yeah,
shouted Matrios, quickly turning the horse and galloping away from the safety of the tent, onwards towards the kingdom. The young prince sundered across the fields and valleys that bordered his home, leaping fences and stone walls and anything else that lay in his wake. He furiously kicked at the horse's sides, urging the beast to gallop like lightning through the heavens.
No, no, no.
roared Matrios, speeding through the vineyard-rich countryside towards his home, while all around him the sky transitioned to a blood-red hue as the sun slipped away.
Stendwio, I'm coming.
He grunted before letting out a guttural scream.
Stendwio.
He lamented.
Stendwio.
Ever closer did the young prince get to the gates of the kingdom, ever closer to his brother. Matrios stormed into the outskirts of this kingdom, where finally the crunch of grass and frozen meadow flowers became the rhythmic clip-clop of powerful hooves on frosted cobbles. The prince screamed into the winter air as the banners of the city gates came into view, with that damned crucifix embroidered into it. Overseeing his arrival, he spat at the sight of it. They always soured his return. Closer now, almost at the gates, Matrios galloped onwards. His mare snorted hot breath from his nostrils, blowing around the prince in plumes.
It's Prince Matrios. He's back.
A voice cried out from between an arrow loop atop the entrance to the city gate.
Quickly now, lads, get that blasted gate open.
Moments later, the groans and strains of monolithic iron chains being pulled into life cried out through the frost as the titanic iron portcullis, that protected the kingdom began to slowly rise.
Faster now, lads. He's not slowing.
The gatekeeper panicked, ordering his men to double their efforts.
Faster!
Matrios didn't even look up. It wasn't important. He'd scale the walls if he had to. Nothing would stop him getting to his brother. The portcullis was almost up. Matrios sundered through it, bobbing his head down low to avoid an early death by decapitation.
Did he make it?
A guard shouted.
I think so.
The gatekeeper said to his companion. Looking down through the arrow loop at the gate, he looked to his friend again.
I hope so.
He gulped. Bounding through the gardens of the kingdom, the cacophonous eruption of hundreds of trumpets began to sound off into life. The city knew that Matrios had arrived home from war. As the prince traveled closer to the center of the city, banners began to unfurl from windows as he passed by, pushed out in celebration by his adoring fans just the way they always did at the sight of the handsome prince's arrival. Word had already gotten out. His multitudes of admirers were already flooding out of their homes and taverns to get a look at the golden child of the Eternus family.
Matrios! Matrios! Matrios!
They shouted with giddy glee as the young lord bounded by. The applause was deafening as the horse and rider crashed through the city streets, tearing through hanging buntings and smashing through oak barrels that had left outside the local shops. Over burning braziers, he leapt. Nothing could stop him from reaching his target, the castle. The snow had started to fall like a fine ash from the heavens, dusting the already gray and melancholy winter-touched city into a glittering white powder.
Out of my way,
cried Matrios, throwing his arm outwards to encourage the sea of citizens from his path.
Spostati!
He shouted in the mother tongue.
Move!
Matrios struggled to control his mare that had started to panic amidst the ever-engulfing sea of admiration. With the click of his tongue, he dug his boot heels into the beast's flanks and pulled the reins aside, changing the course of his descent upon the castle. Hundreds of hands raced to the sky for the chance to grab the young prince, desperate to be able to tell their friends that they touched the young lover in the flesh. Every corner, every stretch of cobble street, every open window of every building was filled with Matrios' fans. Screaming beneath the blaring trumpets and anthemic drums, roses began to descend from the sky, ascend from the ground, and either way fall upon the prince.
Ah!
Screamed Matrios, swatting away the roses as if they were arrows aimed at his heart.
Stop, please, you must move, I beg of you.
He pleaded. Onwards he rode, beneath the shower of floral gifts that began to cast a striking blanket of crimson around the kingdom. In any other event, Matrios' return was joyous, glorious, and a ceremony that he would look forward to upon the return of every trip. It was a celebration of love and of life, but now those roses bore thorns that stung and pulled at his flesh. They formed a funeral bouquet before him, a red carpet of predestined mourning. They swallowed him up until nothing was left but flowers. He turned the horse sharply, causing it to rear up on the spot as the sea of onlookers engulfed him. Hundreds of cold hands reached up around him as if the undead were claiming a living meal, desperately grabbing at the prince's boots and legs.
Please stop. I implore you, stop. I must make way to the castle.
Pleaded Matrios, who, even filled with worry and anger, refused to lay a harmful hand on those who halted his advance.
Please.
He said to himself as he looked to the skies, watching the sun finally slip below the horizon. Even beneath the thunderous cries of the onlookers, the world seemed to quiet in Matrios' mind while the dark of the evening claimed the sky. Silence.
All right, you unruly lot.
Came the commanding and deeply powerful voice of Banchelo, who suddenly split through the guard on horseback, like some biblical figure parting the sea.
Banchelo,
Smiled Matrios, watching as the multitude of desperate hands began to recede from their advances.
My lord.
Replied Banchelo, brandishing a burning torch and bowing his head in respect, with a comforting and meaningful smile pulling at his lips. Behind the head guard, mounted on horseback, just the same, sat his small group of command. Behind them, on horses as black as the ever-approaching night, rode the Nameless Knights, stationed in their ever-precise formation. They bowed their covered heads in respect.
Go.
Said Banchelo.
Go home.
Suddenly, the throwing of Banchelo's burning torch into a nearby brazier caused it to ignite with ferocity. In a chain reaction, so, too, did another brazier roar to life under another discarded torch. Matrios watched as if a trail of breadcrumbs had been laid before him, the path to the castle becoming illuminated by more braziers lighting up.
thank you.
Whimpered Matrios, holding the flat of his palm to his heart.
Knights, with me.
He shouted, commanding his blackened servants before sundering on through the now parted crowd, following the lights to guide him. Guiding lights.
They lead you on.
Whatever awaited Matrios beyond the castle walls had always waited for him. It was the darkness that lingered over his family, ever present and hiding in secrecy behind the veil, waiting for its moment to strike. Their father had always said a great darkness watched over this family. Even in Lord Nemo's younger days, he felt the sinister presence of impending death watching him and carefully following in his boot prints. Their father always said he was too quick for death to catch. Matrios' mare slowed her roaring charge into a steady and respectful canter upon entering the large and ornately crafted gates to the castle's courtyard at the back of their kingdom. From deep within the womb of the citadel came the haunting and melancholy compositions of church organs and the sorrowful calls of a dark choir. The young prince trotted through the gardens of the courtyard, all lit by burning torches, and came to stand before the castle doors. He dropped from his mare whilst the biting chill of the wind blew at his loose-fitting chemise, and exhaled a hot breath to the heavens. The slow and uniform footsteps of the knights echoed behind him. They said nothing. Matrios' hand raised into a fist to knock upon the carved wooden doors to the castle, yet a slow and steady creak stopped him mid-flight. The doors opened. The prince wiped something wet from the end of his nose on the back of his forearm and entered. The vestibule of the castle was lit in an amber glow. Warm in its light and its embrace, the room offered a welcome homecoming like that of a mother's bosom, and Matrios felt its comfort. Hanging wrought iron chandeliers descended from the great darkness of the castle's ceilings. Braziers burnt saturated orange flames, and rows upon rows of candles were laid out on all sides of the room. Sorrowful and haunting voices sang out from the castle, a heartfelt message from a choir somewhere out of sight. The voices were respectful and heavy with grief, yet the grief was not only theirs, but it was also Matrios's too. Along the floor, following the expertly tufted carpet that ran the length of the foyer to the throne room, stood rows of men and women, cloaked in silken robes and hoods, bowing their heads in somber respect. Atop the carpet, a path of red roses scattered before Matrios' steps like blood from the loyal hearts of his people. A gentle hand was firmly placed on the prince's shoulder. It was a knight Pereggio called Poppy. While Matrios had never felt his mother's touch, he liked to imagine it would have comforted him in this moment as much as presence of the female knights did. He closed his eyes for a moment and imagined it was hers. His shaking hand reached up to touch Poppy's. It was clad in armor and cold to the touch,
Just like our hearts.
whispered Matrios to himself, softly and holding back tears that would never be allowed to fall. Poppy removed her hand. The young prince followed the rose-strewn rug onwards, ignoring the small particles of dust that flittered about, mirroring the powdery flurries outside. Occasionally, one caught the glint of candlelight and glittered like gold in his periphery. Onwards he walked with a deep ache in his chest that grew with each passing step. It was a small journey he had to make, but one he found harder than any adventure before. The doors to the throne room opened, releasing past the prince a cold and frozen bluster. He winced, but only slightly. The hooded attendees lined the carpet up to the end of the room, where the throne to the Eternus King would sit in all its glory. For this unfortunate event, however, the gravity of the situation had forced the room of splendor into a crypt. High above on the furthest stone wall, set into the stonework, was a circular window, and through it the moon now took pride in place in the black of the night sky, the light of which pierced the glass as a blade would pierce flesh and spotlighted below that which Matrios dreaded to see.
Stendwio.
Whispered Matrios to the silence of the room. The black-haired prince walked slowly, respectfully, and even to some degree, cautiously, to the end, where the gleam of the candles dimmed and the red of the roses faded. A figure enveloped in a white and gold-stitched chasuble and mitre stood leaning against a mounted object in the glow of the moon, giving them an ethereal and ghostly visage.
Father.
Said Matrios, who quickened his step into a slight rush towards Lord Nemo at the end of the carpet.
Father, please.
Whimpered Matrios, who now ran to his father.
Please, don't tell me it's true.
He panicked. Lord Nemo turned and bowed his head to his youngest heir, and stepped to the side as hands trembled.
Matrios, my son, I am...
Nemo started, before Matrios rushed to what lay behind him.
No, it can't be.
Mourned the prince as he placed his hands on the glass coffin that lay before him.
It can't be.
Grieved Matrios, as he looked deep within the clear sarcophagus to see his reflection staring back.
Stendwio, how? How could this happen, my brother? You were never meant to.
He shook, looking to Nemo for comfort, then back to his brother.
You were never meant to leave me.
He whimpered.
Not now.
He whispered, looking at his brother's eyes, sat closed.
Not like this.
He whispered softly. He could sense his father's displeasure and disappointment as he fought back tears. He would not allow himself to cry, not in front of him. He looked at Nemo and back at his brother.
Not in front of you.
Matrios gazed into Stendwio's coffin. Inside lay his brother, just as serious in death as he looked in life. His elder sibling still looked as if he was resting, running through alchemical and intelligent formulae in his brilliant mind, a mind that now had time to rest, a pleasure it seemed that Stendwio rarely allowed himself. Stendwio lay peacefully, dressed head to toe in full ritual regalia. His full-length, black silk chasuble with emerald detailing enveloped him while he wore his tall and commanding pear mitre, embroidered with a dark silver fabric centerpiece beneath that blasted family emblem, the crucifix.
Who did this to you, brother?
Trembled Matrios.
Who could do this to you?
He mused to Stendwio's body, hoping as a child might that he still may wake up from his eternal slumber.
You were the smartest of us all, brother. You were the true king of these lands.
Matrios, my boy,
said Nemo, who hopped next to his son to offer condolences.
These things happen, I'm afraid.
He explained, trying to convey his sympathy for for their loss as best he could.
Being a king, my son, well, it brings with it its own darknesses.
What do you mean?
Asked Matrios, still staring at his brother's eyes, willing them to open.
We are targets, you and I.
Explained Nemo, waving his hand to Stendwio, then to himself and Matrios.
All of us.
Nemo sprang to the other side of his son.
There is always someone or something that wants a king dead.
Matrios collected his thoughts. He couldn't concentrate fully on his father's words. The ache in his heart overpowered his mind. He watched as Nemo moved freely, energetically, who in turn caught his son frowning at him in confusion.
My dear boy, I understand your sadness, our sadness.
Spoke Nemo, placing Matrios' hand on his own chest.
Our hearts beat the same, my son. We all suffer this sadness together.
Matrios removed his hand from his father's surprisingly strong grip and placed it back on the coffin, once more attempting to connect with his fallen brother.
You seem sad.
Questioned Nemo. Matrios frowned as he watched his father almost dance down the steps before the coffin to pick up a rose, no doubt to offer it as a gift to his melancholy son.
You seem sprightly.
Mused the prince.
Were you not complaining of aching bones and fatigue only 10 nights past? How can you be so youthful in your old age?
Nemo always seemed a little younger than he should. It was most likely due to his lavish and stress-free lifestyle. He imparted his responsibilities and duties onto his sons, who ran his kingdom while he drank wine, made love, and slept for most of the day.
I have my secrets.
Chuckled Nemo boyishly.
It's all the wine I drink.
He winked playfully.
And you boys keep me young in my old age.
He smiled. There was an awkward silence.
How did it happen?
Asked Matrios, placing his hand directly over Stendwio's heart through the lid of the glass coffin. Nemo bowed his head respectfully.
An assassin, they're saying.
Explained his father, who also placed his hand on the coffin.
A knife in the back, a coward's way of killing.
Cowards.
Sneered Matrios, his palm tightening into a fist.
Where?
In the depths of the dungeons, at the heart of the spillways.
Explained Nemo.
He was hiding away down there, working on all manner of clandestine machinations.
Who knew he would be down there?
Asked Matrios aggressively.
Who knew? Who would know to find him there? It would have to be someone he knew, correct?
Spat Matrios, becoming flustered with questions.
You know I keep a close circle on this family, Matrios. You know I would not allow anyone within our ranks who might possibly pose as a threat to myself or my children.
Explained Nemo calmly.
I do.
Sighed Matrios.
Where were the knights? Why weren't they there to protect him? Someone had to have been watching him, father. Someone had to have been tracking his whereabouts to know where he was there. Someone had to know how he got down in the...
Nemo grabbed his son by the arms. Comfortingly, as his jet black hair swayed from beneath his white mitre, he shushed his son, as he did when Matrios was but a babe.
My child, you'll become sick if you keep up this ferocity. It is admirable, Matrios, but your energy is misplaced. Instead, mourn for your brother peacefully. He would want you to be okay, wouldn't he?
Pleaded Nemo, rubbing his son's arm. Matrios sighed deeply.
He would.
The prince kissed his lips, then placed his fingers above Stendwio's.
Stendwio was always there for me when others weren't. He taught me strength at times when I thought retreat and fear were the only cards in my deck. He taught me to be weary of everything.
He explained, looking back to his father. The flittering of dust particles cascaded from the rafters of the room or throne room and caught the lunar glow about them. Distracted by the falling glitter, Matrios looked up to the moon through the large window above them. It gave the prince a much needed moment of reflection, and indeed an important reflection it was. From the glow of the moon, the white and dominating sphere in the night sky reflected into the prince's eyes, which caught the attention of his father.
Matrios?
Inquired Nemo, pulling at his son's arms, encouraging him to look at him.
Yes, father. Look at me.
Asked Nemo, his grip tightening. Slowly Matrios turned, and where the reflection of that white orb should have left his eyes upon looking at his father, it didn't. It remained. In Matrios' left eye, destiny beckoned once more. Nemo chuckled to himself and smiled.
Matrios, my child.
Smiled Nemo.
Yes, father.
Said Matrios.
It is time.
All right. Wow. And I really do think like that's all I have time for, because I do
That's perfectly fine. Yeah, we do have to cut it a chapter short than we planned, but that was really good.
Oh my god! And I have like so many questions. Like, what's going on with Nemo right now?
Oh,
Why
I have a theory.
Stronger. He's moving quicker, and the hair too, because it was described as white.
It was graying before, which
yeah.
made Nemo upset.
When he was when he went to visit Stendwio, and now it said pitch black, I think it said again, or something like that.
Yeah. And also, going back to the Stendwio, like him talking a Stendwio scene, it said that the wine went to his head quickly when Stendwio was drinking.
Oh.
And Nemo says, "You're stronger than I thought." Then he looked at the wine and said, "Clearly." How did Pereggio die? He was poisoned by wine. We've pretty much caught up to where I've read up. I think I've read like a few pages after this, but I am full in theory mode at this point.
Yeah, for real. Let me take this. We're gonna be bald for a second while we're gonna be bald kings.
We are just like.
There we go.
Which one's Pereggio? Which one's Stendwio? Do you think out of us two? I'll be Pereggio. I'll be fucked up.
Yeah, I'll pretend to be the smart one. Yeah, I'll be Stendwio.
Yeah. You do all the reading, so it makes sense.
Oh god, that one specifically, I thought I was like, holy
that was a lot.
Oh, I was like, there's hardly any words in this damn one besides in the very beginning. Oh god.
Ow! That was fantastic, though.
This is what's your? So that was your theory, that he's the one that's been poisoning his sons, and maybe when he knows that they get the eye, and then if they potentially die, that somehow maybe he gets some of their power, some of their strength.
I would say some of their youth. If I had to guess, I would definitely say that as soon as one of his children die after they've gotten the white eye, it's like, boom, he has the strength that they have. The years that they would have had are now his. Yeah. Which we saw when Pereggio was only around for 2 years. And Nemo was young then Pereggio died, and then Nemo lived another 5 years after that, when Stendwio was far into being a lord, but his hair was starting to grey. And then Stendwio dies, but I don't think he planned, because I don't know yet. I'm pretty sure Copia killed him. I'm pretty sure that was Copia that did it.
Yeah, I still think that was Copia, whether that's in cahoots with
Nemo.
Nemo, since Nemo was, like before he went down there again, saying like, everybody knows you go down there, or at least he did. He's like, what are you talking about? And I don't go down there. Why would a king go down there?
Yeah.
So who knows?
And,
yeah.
And then when he was like, when Nemo was like, yeah, I don't know. He just went down there. He just went down there and got assassinated. That's crazy. even though he sent him down there that time. But I don't know if that means that he knows that Ion, was going to be there, or he just knew that someone was out to get his son, which would have given Nemo so much more life. Which is why I think in the prologue, that old man is Nemo. Either before, when he first gets the deal or whatever the curse is, when he gets the white eye.
Yeah.
Or maybe this is the end of the story. He's alone in a burnt out place, and his throne is like got char and snow on it. So I think he might not be working with Ion. I think they might be at odds at some point.
Yeah, because I mean, he probably still wouldn't be in favor of, unless he didn't realize it, with Ion coming with this whole rat plague that we're still barely seeing the beginnings of. And man, there's so much to play out. I'm already like so invested in this.
Yeah.
This is so good. And yeah, of course, Lord Nemo seems to be the furthest away from like the interpretation that we know from, you know, the ghost lore, like, you know, Papa Dale. He's like the furthest away from that, but it has made this a story that much more intriguing. The fact that he is the way he is, that he's as messed up and as he is. My thinking now is like this whole deal that he has in place. Now I really like. I can't wait to read like his backstory, short story that he wrote.
Yeah, right.
But because now I get why he's like, yeah, do not read this beforehand because this has tons of spoilers for the
Brothers
book.
Fore.
I'm wondering, has he lived through different generations of the Eternus bloodline and outlived everybody? Because he kind of or is this the first one where these are his first sons that he's ever had, and this is the first time it's happening? Or kind of like Neil said in the chapter, my father's father, but it's just him. Like here in this story, he's been the one that was there from the very beginning, living through multiple generations of the story. Wow.
Yeah. But then at what point is it other members of his family that died and he's just lived for like maybe 100 so years?
Yeah,
or is it just his sons? Because if it's just his sons, how long was he king before this? And why did he make that deal to just stay alive, to have that eternal youth? Eternal to a point. And is that why when as soon as he saw that Pereggio was just kind of this quote-unquote runt, he didn't take any interest and immediately tried schmoozing with the I forget the name, midwife?
Yeah.
Was like, hey, do you want to get some wine? That kind of deal. Didn't care about the
midwife. If like that was the early hint in the story, because you're right. There was like a slight flirtation towards that midwife like right away.
I think that was Stendwio's mother, and that was just showing that he was going down the line. Because I think Ion is going to still be the youngest one. But how so? If Ion is a bastard child, because he's described as that in the name glossary,
so he could be older than Matrios.
He could be, or is it a recent thing? Because we don't really know how old they are. We know that Pereggio was 42 when he died. 40 years after he was born, then 2 years was how long he was king. He was 42. Stendwio's younger. I don't know how much by, but he might be older than Pereggio when he died.
Yeah.
It all depends. And then we also have the Nameless Knights. I don't know who they are. How long have they been with Nemo?
Man, there's so many intriguing elements. Yeah, they probably go back to whenever his whole thing started. You know, whatever deal he made with some kind of, we don't know what's in this story, some kind of a devil, demon, or whatever have you. Maybe some witchcraft that did it.
Oh, it's absolutely some witchcraft.
And it's something like he was maybe told, like, so he has to have known that whoever then has the white eye, he was probably told, like, you know, basically if they die, you can kind of get, you know, more years to your life, but you're cursed to that be that it only passes on to your sons, and basically you would have to either kill your sons or you yourself eventually just wither away and die. And he's obviously choosing like, well, fuck them.
Might as well dying.
I'm gonna live. Man, this is
Yeah.
really, really interesting. We're only 3 chapters in out of 16.
I had a little theory there, but then it didn't make sense.
What was
It
it?
tied the Nameless Knights. I was gonna say like, well, maybe what happens if they were Nemo's family, and he made this deal, and then the white eye happened, and that's why he's lived for so long. He's subsisted off his family's life or energy, but none of them have the white eye because it's mentioned that you can see their eyes when the light shines on them, and none of them have the white eye. So that wouldn't make sense unless they were like guardians given to him by
Whatever it is that
whatever entity he's made a deal with.
Yeah. Wow. Man, this is so good. This is
So
good.
interesting.
All right, so this is officially going to be like a really cool book club that I'm like now invested in. I love this whole story now itself. This is awesome. And yeah, honestly, I love it's like a perfect mixture. It's taking aspects that we know, still mixing them up. Like I said, Lord Nemo's completely different than Nell. But yet it still retains, and even you get those little callbacks. I love that, something as just seeing the name of a song that we know of, you're like, oh, callback.
The fact that Nemo was just quoting Cerritos at one point, and he was just like, sorry, I just remembered a play I watched. And then Setwendio was like, that's a bit weird. That's a bit crazy.
Oh man. But yeah, that's so yeah, we didn't get through the 4 chapters today, but well, I mean, we'll see. It's okay. However long, honestly, this journey takes to complete, it doesn't matter because now I'm like I'm invested in it. So
I'm invested. Yeah, plus, Johnny Bush is working on another one, so maybe by the time we finish this and read the Nemo backstory one, he'll have that other one launched, which is, I believe, a prequel novel to this, The Crown of Thorns, yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
With, I think Matrios might be the main character, if I remember
correctly. So it could be that we get to like another time jump or something. And because I mean, I don't want to speculate, especially for somebody that, people that haven't seen the cover of that book. But yes, I don't think it's going to be, I don't know. Maybe it's like past years that we kind of just skipped, somewhere in that 40-year gap that we kind of skipped. Yeah. Or if we're going to have another significant-ish time jump right now after maybe he becomes king, and it kind of goes into his early years, where maybe here we might skip it. I don't know.
Yeah. Someone just asked us to summarize the chapters. Chapter 1 was the birth and life of Pereggio Eternus.
Yeah.
And him becoming, well, they called him Papa Eternus, but then he's been called Lord, and all of them are lords ever since then. So I have a theory that this was
Lord, yeah.
Yeah. I have a theory that this was made originally just like using all the names, the stuff like Papa Emeritus the First, Prima.
Yeah.
But obviously, I don't know if something came up with like copyright and like I know the crucifix symbol is copywritten. That's why some people don't use them in like selling stuff on Etsy.
Yeah.
So like trying to bypass that, which is a smart way of doing it.
So chapter 1 was kind of fully focused on Pereggio and him, his birth, and eventually gaining the lordship or the crown or whatever. I mean, they do wear their mitre, so it's kind of like he combines the elements there. It seems like that's kind of like their crown in a way.
Yeah.
But they each have their own, because Nemo still has his own.
Yeah. He went from wearing the fur-covered things to like wearing the white chasuble and mitre in like Matrios's chapter.
Yeah. And then we go to the second chapter, which you start learning all about Stendwio, and you discover that now he's the king. You kind of time jumped a little bit, and in those years that you time jumped, Pereggio passed away, and by the end of you learn that Stendwio was the smartest of the bunch, and he's all into magic
Alchemy
and
and magic.
alchemy and all that stuff. And yeah, you start seeing the hints of the beginning of the invasion of the rats, and Ion's character and Ion's possible mother that people have seen. And by the end of it, it seems he gets Stendwio gets assassinated by. We're still speculating it's Ion. Yet it seems his father might have had a little bit to do with it as well, in terms of, which is why his vision was all messed up down in the catacombs. Because remember, he couldn't really see who it was, and everything was just. I thought that the Ion was causing all of this, but I think it might have been the poison from the wine that you said.
I think it was both that, and also there was mentions of a witch. I think the witch is Pythia, which is Ion's mother.
Yeah.
My little theory is that Nemo and Ion and Pythia aren't working together. They are not a solid group together. Maybe not yet. I think they might be at odds with each other for the moment. And Pythia might be trying to help her son ascend to being a lord. Although it is also like in the chapters that Ion and Copia, Nil, and Sister Imperator do kill the brothers altogether. So it might just be that Ion has been with them the entire time.
Jeez. Oh man, but yeah, that was basically chapter 2 there, and 3 obviously started very hot and heavy.
Yeah.
You guys can go, if you have the copy, you guys can go reread yourselves. We're not gonna.
I'm not
But
doing that ever again.
anyways, it's Matrios. He's a player. He's a player, and everybody loves him, both men and women. And
Hell
then pretty
yeah.
much you saw there, the rest of the end of that chapter was him kind of getting the news that of Stendwio, and him trying to just make it back and make it to his brother. But obviously, we know it's gonna be too late, and he gets there. And I love another reference to how we see the bodies and the see-through glass coffins throughout the actual ghost tours and everything. That's how they have them right there. That was a cool little callback as well. And yeah, by the end, he gets the glass eye. Nemo's happy. Now he just needs to figure out, apparently, how to now kill even Matrios. And we're going to see more of this rat plague and more of Ion and his witch mother. And I'm intrigued, man. This is good so far. This is really good.
It is. I love the way that Johnny Bush has taken the ghost lore and twisted it to be something so unique.
Yeah.
Where it rings true for ghost lore, but it also adds so much. Like, just diving a little into him, Pereggio is so tragic as a character. He reminds me very much so of the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and his father is like Count Frollo. He's physically abused. He was born a month early. He's disabled. He's disfigured. He's described as having like a vulture-like way of sitting and a hunch. He's got scarred hands, eyes that don't work, and he's only 40 by that time we see him, and it's like, oh,
yeah. And I loved, it made him a tragic figure and one we get to learn a lot about. Whereas, as we know from the real band's lore, he's kind of like the forgotten one because we just knew so little of him. And then right away, I mean, most people jumped in with either Meliora, Prekel, Impera, whereas definitely going back to the Opus era, everybody's like, well, he was long gone, so nobody really talks about him that much in the community. It's good that here he kind of gets his time to shine, even if he's disfigured and all of that. It's I like seeing that he meant a lot to his brothers. I like seeing that too. That the brothers actually really do care for each other. Yeah,
and it's like Matrios and Stendwio wear leather gloves, just like their brother did, to honor him. And that story of Pereggio, like, getting close to the Nameless, and throwing a ball at them, hoping he'd be the one that catched it the next time, and then it does happen, and he names the knights like Hummus and Poppy. It's so sweet, and it's so sad, and I wish he wasn't dead.
but I assume we'll keep hearing more about him throughout the book. So that's good, and hopefully even more of Stendwio and as you know, as Matrios reminisces. But yeah, I'm really pleased with this.
Yeah.
He freaking knocked it out of the park just in 3 chapters. I felt like we already got like a meaty section, and we've probably hardly made a dent into this. So I'm
Oh
really
yeah.
excited to continue. Yet
3 chapters out of 16.
we don't continue next week. We have
Mhm.
a slight diversion because as somebody stated a few messages ago, issue 3 of the Sister Imperator comic does release in about 3 or 4 days. Somebody mentioned right now in the message, should be on Wednesday. So it is going to be the subject of the next SKELETALK. We'll fully dive into that one, and it looks really interesting. We won't fully dive into them, but I will quickly flash through. They did give us some preview pages, kind of like they've done before, and what we can kind of tell already is that we're gonna dive into the whole Dance Macabre section of the story and maybe what the events were really like, how they went down. Like I said, we're not really gonna dive into these pages. We got the whole issue to talk about next week. I'm just gonna like show them on the screen, but it's that whole part in the video where they go to the door. The guy's like, "What party?" And then he opens it, and then you get in there, and we're gonna see, I guess, the actual canon events. We'll talk about it more of why there maybe are differing things from what we see in the music video to the comic, and we'll do like comparison slides of. I'll put screenshots of the trailer or the music video as well. But yeah, it basically seems like Nil and Sister reunite here. So it's not the first meeting as they had said in the music video. This is actually a reuniting, as we've known from issues 1 and 2. They've already met, and I'm like, what the hell?
Let there be blood.
Okay, so this is getting into the juicy stuff this next issue. So we're getting into the Satanist stuff. Like if I go back to this slide, you guys see there in that
He's
middle,
getting eaten.
yeah, it's like what is going on there? What's up with Mr. Frickin' Goat Man there? I mean, similar figure does appear in the music video, but here it's like really looks like a freaking goat's head right there in the black robe, and so yeah, this is pretty
Oh,
interesting.
yeah, Majestic Hot Dog just pointed out her poking his eye to make the genetical eye thing is totally canon. Do you reckon they're gonna keep it that it's just like blunt force trauma to the eye?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess we'll see if that's what
Yeah.
it is. We'll find out for sure in this one. Because I'm gonna take it whereas these comic events are the actual, like, this is what actually happened, and the music video we'll get into
Is
it.
how
Yeah,
I have this. I've had the same thought for a while, of how like that isn't entirely how it happened. That's just like Copia hearing the story of how those two met and how he thinks it went, and that's why it's so like 80s inspired, like the music video, despite it being set in the 60s.
exactly. Yeah. There's so many like things right off the bat where you're like, that's not accurate. That's not right.
It's very
Uh,
80s there.
it is really 80s, especially with the dance choreography. Well, like I said, we'll fully dive
Yeah,
into
we'll
it
dive into it next one.
next week. For anybody tuning in at the end, at the very beginning, we did talk about this. Let me bring the slide up again, and because I'll play it again, the demo, as like the outro video for anybody, because I know I did see somebody asking about information on what we shared in the beginning. So once again, it is this Discord server that spawned out of the official Ghost Discord server. They kind of made one where this is the Ghost Community Sings project, and so the link will be in the description. But basically, you can submit your audio, video, or you playing any instruments, and they really said any instruments. It doesn't even need to be only ones that are part of the song. they'll still fit you in there. You're guaranteed to appear in it whichever way you participate. And it's they're gonna edit them all together to make this like fan ghost community cover of different songs, starting with Peacefield. So I'll also make it the outro here for anybody that didn't catch in the beginning, and then I'll be making a further post, community post on the channel later on. But that's the
Linking
information
the
on that.
and I believe you'll be putting the, because Bar just asked for it, the link to the Discord. I believe you'll be putting that in the post as well.
Yeah, it'll be a link to the Discord, and then in there, like they say here, all the details and recording tutorials are on the Discord server, including the links for uploading. So I'll just link their Discord, and in there, once you join it, they have the further links of everything else you need to be able to do, and the tutorials of how to do it. So I'll just link that. Speaking of Discords, what's it called? I don't know if Loki's in here or if anybody or you.
Loki popped in earlier, but they left to avoid spoilers.
Okay. Because I do need the link to our unofficial Slelafam Discord. I actually created a Discord account for myself to interact with the the one for this musical project. And the link he had sent me to an email before, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Now I can join that one. It like was not valid anymore. I guess maybe it timed out. So guys, I need a new link for my own unofficial. I couldn't. I tried for an hour. I tried searching for it. Slelafam, nothing. SKELETALK, nothing. I was like, I can't find my own unofficial.
Yeah, I'm already there.
Okay, so if you guys can link me or invite me, I mean, I just made an account, Ghost Historia. But if you can send it to me, Chronicle, or if anybody else can leave a comment after the videos, like on the replay, that way I can actually get into the Discord. That would be great.
Yeah, I'll send it to you right now. I'm normally horribly inept when it comes to Discord, but I can send it to you over our silly little messages right now.
Sweet. But yeah, I think that's all we have for today's episode. I hope you guys are also enjoying this this new story that we're venturing in. And obviously
this has given SKELETALK a bit more life.
Oh yeah. Now we're like Nemo. Like as soon as it's not a YI I'm looking for. I'm looking for Johnny Bush to publish another book, and I'm like, yes, 5 more years of life. So yeah, we have little short stories, and he did state just a post a day or two ago that the next book is imminent. Like the release is imminent. So it's like you said, probably by the time we finish this book, it might already be out. And after doing the short stories that should happen in between, we should be able to simultaneously just go into the next one. And hell yeah, man, continue this damn journey. I'm excited.
Yeah. I'm very excited. I'll try and work on my Terzo impression in between episodes. That was bad, but I'll work on it.
Dude, your impressions for everything was like spot on. Thank you for that.
I'm good out of 3 other brothers, and that's about it. That's all you're getting from me. Unfortunately, I think Terzo's gonna stick around for a while.
At least you got the permission, and then we can actually deliver like this.
Yeah.
Pretty much almost an audiobook for this book it's the unofficial audiobook with mistakes and discussion between. But yeah,
I remember when sorry to cut you off again. I remember when we first got permission from Johnny Bush to being like, which by the way, he was so chill about it, to be like, yeah, that's fine, go ahead.
Yeah, anything you need from me. It's like, no, that's enough. Thank you so much.
Yeah, he was offering to like send high quality prints of art, like just incredibly helpful. Everyone, I do recommend go support him. He's a wonderful artist. He's done official art for Ghost. Wonderful guy. I remember when we first got the permission, I was like, we could like watch it and do it this style, and I think I said we could do it like this podcast I like Creepcast, like that kind of style, where it's like we can talk about it, read it, and then do a summary. And it's cool to be able to do that.
Yeah, which we didn't think we were going to be able to do, and you told me after, you're like, you know what, let's just try. The worst he could say is
Mhm.
no, and then we stick to the plan that we already told everybody. But no, he was right away, literally answered within seconds or at least a few minutes, and he's like, "Yep, go ahead, man. Anything you need from me."
Yeah.
It's insane. So yeah, excited for this. We still got 2 more issues of the proper Sister Imperator. So yeah, we've become like a ghost literature, um, series for the next who knows how long. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'd say we can go strength to strength, for whether it be unofficial to official. We still need to, I think, one day do like a fan submission kind of deal.
yeah, for
Like
sure.
I'd love to be like, this is from this fan and this is from this fan. Like if any of you ever have like any ghost like fan art or fan writing, anything, feel free to send it our way. I love that stuff. I know. I've unfortunately forgotten how is it GG or JJ Jai? I'm very sorry. I've interacted with you on the Discord. You're lovely and you have wonderful cross stitches, and I'm very jealous.
I'm excited to finally jump on that Discord finally. So I was like, all right, I made one last night. So.
I snuck in there. I snuck in there for a while, and they didn't know it was me for a bit.
Oh, okay.
Great. Yeah. I was called like the Wretched Hive or something. Totally forgetting that Wretched Ghoul is Wretched Ghoul, because in my head, Ghoul is Ghoul. I still haven't talked to Ghoul outside the streams. You're cool though. And then one time I made an actual Discord account and joined, and it was like, "Hello, it's me," and they didn't believe it at first.
It's a me, Mario.
It's a me. Yeah, that's my actual real voice.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us on this episode. I do have to wrap it up and get ready for work because duty calls. But
Duty.
yeah, this was fun. It was a day late. Yesterday I had family stuff, father's birthday.
Happy birthday.
Mexican Mother's Day because they celebrated a different day, a day early. So,
Got it.
But thanks, man, for allowing me to be able to do this today.
That's fine, man.
I completely have to skip the whole week, so thank you guys as well. So sweet, man. Glad we got this in.
So am I. It's been wonderful. Thank you, everyone in chat, for being lovely. Stay safe until the next one. It's been great having you.
And let's see if I can make that one the outro so we can kind of have it playing again.
I love you. I like you.
Oh my god. All right, we will set the community Peacefield video demo as the outro. Thank you guys, and we'll see you guys next week with the issue 3 of Sister Imperator. Bye.
Yes. Bye-bye.
It's over, anything watch out till we